Hello to everybody. It's been so long. I've been very busy, but I missed all of you. Now, I can see, I have not streamed in months because that camera is configured for when I was messing around with the Xbox, which I have no plans of doing anymore. It was an experiment. Now, I'm going to actually try to fix this. It's going to be tricky because I actually forgot how to use OBS after all this time. Oh my. Let's see if I can change it around. But it's just breaking down. And let's say hello to everybody. The camera should not be moving. Let's see, we got Carmen, Ian, Hudson Valley Guy Videos, Mauricio, Alucard, Tom Jensen, my good friend, that, and Tom, I miss you. My good friend that actually does a lot of great work. He's right now recovering from a broken foot. Great volunteer work in those areas. Who else is hanging? I know Mark Antonio just finished streaming. Well, I just finished wrapping up shows on KGRA where I've been so busy. But right now, I really need to focus on this camera because I don't like the way it's cutting in that image like that. And I know what it is too because that's when I was messing around with the freaking Xbox. I know what it is. Now I cannot play with my volumes too much because it's set specifically perfectly for doing the shows on KGRA, and I am not gonna even mess with my sound. What I need to do is really get these settings, and I know where it's coming from, but it's gonna be a pain to redo it. Right now, this was a last minute thing. I said, let me go on. It's beautiful out. I know Mark D'Antonio was doing his thing earlier. And it's just been so long, and I found a little time in between everything that's going on at KGRA, which I'll fill in a little bit. Oh, the music must be still running in the background. See, I'm rusty. Let's do that. And it's actually funny because I don't hear anything. Okay, I got to actually check KGRA. I got to check the network. Let me do that now. Make sure I'm streaming on KGRA. All right, so now, next thing. And you should be able to hear me a little bit better now that I shut the music. And I'm actually shut down that whole line coming in. I may have to stop the stream. But before I do that, I've got to check some other settings. Yeah, I've been running the KGRAradio.com station for the last 2 weeks straight, producing every live show, doing pre-records, doing so much stuff. We've added 3 shows, so it's just insane right now. I'm so busy. I mean, incredibly busy. All right, let me see. Black Magic. I know it's coming from here. I got to see. I know the screen looks good, but it's not full screen. And I'm a perfectionist, and it just can't stay that way. It is on the right settings. That is bizarre. 1080p 5954. That's right. Oh, that is very interesting. I mean, I may have to deal with it for now. But because I really wasn't prepared for this, I'm gonna have to redo the settings, and I'm live streaming right now, so I cannot do it. And I'll catch everybody up on everything that's going on. But I'm really, it looks great on my screen here. Let's see something. I just stretched it out. It's got to be. Let's see. I'm just trying to figure out the settings here. Let's see. Wow, I must have really messed with this when I was doing the gaming. And I really won't do that again because it really, really messed up everything. Just trying to scale the game. Because that was a nightmare. It took me like an hour just to figure that out. So I'm just trying to do a few things on my end here. So it's good to be here. It's good to be on with everybody again and doing this. It's been too long. It's just been too long. And I apologize for that, but yeah, I can't turn off any outputs to change the video settings while I'm streaming live. And that's the major issue I'm facing right now. So, you know what? I'm just going to leave it as is for now. Otherwise, I would have to just stop this stream. It's just upsetting me seeing it cropped like that. Because the Hudson Valley, New York is there. It's the image. The image is incorrect. And there's really nothing I can do to change that. I mean, I'm shrinking it right now. But it's not changing anything. You could see me probably playing with the size right now. I will not give up. Because I never give up. Okay, I'm just playing with the settings more. But I've been... Let's see, it's been a couple of months. What's going on in those couple of months? Well, I was Al of the Bronxville Paranormal Society, and myself, participated in a documentary here for Pine Bush. It's going to be shown locally in December. And along with Al and I, Linda Zimmerman, Peter Robbins, and a few others in the area are going to participate in this documentary. So the whole film crew came here. It was a bunch of college kids. They're doing it for for the Dutchess County Community College. Mark D'Antonio has done work with these college kids in the past. And this time, I guess it was Al and I. And I know they're still doing interviews, so I'm sure they may have contacted Mark at this point. I gave contacts to everyone. That's just the way I am. I was giving them all kinds of info. Just trying to get the information to, as many interviews that they can possibly line up. So I've been doing that, getting ready for winter, unfortunately. So with all the work that comes along with that. And for those that live in a colder region, the Northeast or the upper Midwest, you know what I mean. Getting the firewood ready and bringing all the summer things in and doing all of that. And then there's KGRA. Race is the other producer for the network. And he went off to Paracon in Utah. I think it was in Salt Lake. He was there last weekend. And he actually drove from Arkansas. So then he left, I think they went to Skinwalker Ranch as well. Now, KGRA now has an exclusive investigative team. So right now, as I was finishing the show with Linda Moulton Howe, which I produced her show and I actually did some announcements for her on the air. And I also was on with Linda Moulton Howe last week asking her questions, and she loved it. So we're going to be doing more of that in the future. And unfortunately, John Burroughs is ill right now. He's recovering slowly. He's undergone some surgery regarding some health issues. So John is on hiatus of Phenomenon Radio for a few months. Hopefully he'll be back by the new year. So I'm stepping in and filling the void. And I have to tell you, I was totally nervous, intimidated. It is the aspects. I can't mess with it right now because I'm not going to stay on long. the next time I'll stream, I'll get this all set. What do you mean the background music? What background music are you guys listening to? There's nothing going through my board right now. I do not. I don't hear anything on my end. So, and like I said, I just don't like this little black edging on the screen. But since I haven't streamed in 2 months, I just jumped on and decided to stream because the weather was nice out. I have a few hours I can probably get to sleep because it's been like that. So yes, last week I was on Linda Moulton Howe. I was on with Linda Moulton Howe on her show, Phenomenon Radio. And I was totally, and I'm a guy who's already been doing this for quite a while. I co-hosted a show with Jamie Havocan for almost 2 years. I pretty much produce, guest co-host on numerous shows still. And then I'll go on some shows at times as a guest. And last night, I went on with Rosemary Ellen Guiley, and we discussed this whole Tom DeLonge to the Stars Academy issue. And I am not sold. I'm not convinced. I think that they're trying to drill wool over our eyes with these so-called former people that were in the government. And I'm not even going to go through the list. I did it on the show last night. I ranted for a half hour. I mean, are they using him? It's a bunch of spooks, and they're probably going to load him with a bunch of disinfo. It was all about investors raising money. I wasn't impressed on the presentation, and I'm not buying it. Bottom line, just not buying it. So that's just my short summary of everything that went on yesterday. And then I had to turn around and do a show with Rosemary last night. She had Nick Redfern. And Nick was just in the upper New England, the Greater New England UFO conference that they had. And I know my friend Eric Hartwig was there. And I believe Richard Dolan was there, Peter Robbins, Travis Walton. And I did get to say hello to Travis. I spoke to him briefly on the phone. And I'm already setting my sights for Bill Fest 3. I know that, and I'm just grabbing something. I know that it's going to be great to have Paul and Keith come again. And I miss speaking to these guys. I miss talking to Mark. I miss watching their live streams. And I've got to be honest, I've neglected the Astro Imaging Live website. I just don't have the time right now. But soon, by November, I'll get back to the routine of doing a lot of skywatches because I'll be probably doing the live streams during live shows on KGRA like I was doing in the past. It's just right now I am overwhelmed because race is right. Actually, I called race after Phenomenon because tonight was the first time that I ever was doing announcements, intros, outros, during a live show while I'm producing it and fading out to commercials, coming back from breaks, putting in the commercials, and trying to read off the screen on a notepad, which I won't do in the future. I actually, in the middle of the show, printed out what I had written earlier, what I was going to say, and I'll actually play it, give you guys a little idea, because I already edited it, the show, and it's already on the KGRA archives. So I am definitely going to be streaming a lot, starting, hopefully, and I just don't want to say this throwing gas, but I would say the first week in November, for just in time for the Leonids. I believe it's the Leonids, and then the Geminids in December. Right now is the Orionids. So hopefully I will get back in the groove soon and start doing some streaming, because I am definitely not going to miss the Leonids, and I'm definitely not going to miss the Geminids. Race is going to have to work. I don't care what day it falls on. Yeah. And October 20th is the peak for the Orionids. So today's the 12th, going into the 13th. So a week from today, Thursday night, I don't think I'm producing. I don't know yet, because I don't know what's going on with race right now. Hopefully I won't, and I'll be here. And by then I'll have this camera all set up properly. The settings will be correct. You can see it's not properly fitted right now on the YouTube screen, because like I said, this was a last-minute rush. Put OBS on and go. You don't even see my Bill Skywatcher thing, the clock, nothing. I just said, let's go. But it's so great. It's really great to see everybody here in chat. And I'm going to just shout out the names. It's Daryl and David Riles, good friend of Jamie and I. Really, Jamie, they used to do skywatching together in Florida, and then David moved up north. Hudson Valley UFO guys, Nancy W. Prow, our good friend Prow, I miss you. And Prow, don't forget, eggplant parmesan. I promised, anytime, get down here. Thanksgiving's coming. Eric is coming over from Massachusetts. We're going to have fun here. Tom Jensen, again, a great friend. He made me the model UFO toys. I don't know if he's still doing it right now. He's recovering from a foot injury. He does volunteer work for the Salvation Army. I mean, he gives out everything. He's a really incredible person. And kudos to him and his wife. Tony the Night Owl and Wild Vicky. And I just seen somebody else. And Amanda. And I know Amanda's been busy with Mark D'Antonio. She does a great job with Mark. And I'm glad for Amanda. And Amanda, all I know is I don't want to hear no excuses. And what's up to Chris? I'm live streaming, Mom, for a little while. Just a little while. I need to. I haven't done it in months. Really? And what's up, Chris, in the UK? Mom is Nancy. That's what me and Race joke about. Ma! Meatloaf! No! Race, me and Race do that all the time. We have a fun time with that. Amanda, I don't want to hear it. You're coming next year. I don't want to hear it. If I have to go there and drive over the border with Lorraine and her husband, Steve, we're coming to get you, and we're going to put you in the freaking trunk if we have to, and we're going to drag you here for Pine Bush. And that's it. We're not going to hear no more. I'm just kidding, Amanda. But we love you, and I know you're getting ready for Saw. I know it. I can only imagine how you're doing it so specifically, doing every little detail, preparing for October, what is it, 26th that it comes out, I think? No, 27th? So I know Amanda's all psyched for Saw. Jigsaw, actually. And the Master of Ownage. And yes, I am back. And I tell you, I missed it. I really miss doing this. It's so much fun. But I have to tell you, I'm really, really getting involved with the network, and I'm loving it. I just love doing what I'm doing. I'm more involved than ever. I have a lot more responsibilities. What's the Spider-Man thing? With power, great power comes great responsibility. Right now, I am mentally exhausted. I did a pre-record this morning for 2 hours. I just did live shows. I'm mentally fatigued, and I've been doing this for 2 weeks straight. And I know Race is testing me. I know it. Race, if you're listening, I know, you know where Race Hobbs is right now? I called Race after Phenomenon. This is what I was going to say earlier. He's in the woods doing a paranormal investigation with a team right now. Because like I said, KGRA is now doing their own paranormal investigations because they're getting ready for KGRA TV. This is not a joke. The owner is going ballistic. He's investing so much into KGRA. And you think I'm going to leave now? They asked me, Bill, are you sure you want to do this? Are you kidding me? I love this. I'm in. I'm in till I'm old in this chair and I can't sit no more. As long as you own that station, well, actually, another gentleman, and I won't name who it is, As long as this guy owns the station and this is what's going on, oh, I'm in all the way. All the way. But yeah, I am tired. I'm actually, and Bear, what's up, Bear? And I'm sorry, Red Sox fans and Cleveland Indian fans. I'm so sorry. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Go Yankees! Yes, baby! Yes! I have to do that. I was so excited last night. I was producing Rosemary's show, and I said, I got to go, everybody in chat. I said, I'm out of here. I got to go watch the rest of the Yankee game. And it was tense. I was freaking out. I was just panicking. I couldn't even watch the announcers because I can't listen to national broadcasting. Baseball needs to do something about this, and I think it should be for all sports. Well, it's really baseball, hockey, maybe even basketball. They should have, during a national broadcast, they should have where you can get the home team announcers that you listen to all year long, your team announcers. They should use the SAP button only for your area because, I mean, that's where, you know what the blackouts are, where they keep the sports. They black it out if you're not in the region or the area. Well, let's do that. Let's do hit the SAP button. If you say live in New York and you're a New York Yankee fan or a New York Met fan, and they're in the playoffs, and you don't want to hear these national broadcasters. You want to hear your hometown announcers. And that goes for the other team, too. I cannot enjoy, and with all due respect to these announcers, I can't enjoy it like if I was listening to my own home team announcers, the guys I listen to all year. But see, baseball is looking at it like, well, we're putting this on other networks for the playoffs. We got to have our announcers. It'll detract from these guys. We don't want to put the other guys in. It's all about the money. We all know that. It's all about the money and the ratings. But it's a shame. It's not for the fans. So, and good night, Tom. And I hope you feel better with your foot. And you need to join us soon, really. You need to get back into the business of hanging out with us. Because I miss you. I'm speaking for myself. I missed you. And there is slight activity. You know, you got the Orionids going on. And I am really not happy with my screen the way it looks right now. But I can't play with it right now. I just can't. This could be the camera, too, doing that. Now that I think about that, it could be the camera setting itself, too. Might be on the wrong setting. I may have to go out when the battery dies and check that. It is freezing up here, by the way. It is about 49 right now. But it's been unusually warm here. We've been in the near 80. It's mid-October, and we're 80 degrees. This weekend, it's going to be 80 degrees on Sunday. And good night, Tom. I see you on Skype, and you really need to come and hang out with us one night. When I get back into and I will say Mom. I'll say hello to Mom. When we get back into the groove and get everybody back on Skype like we used to do, we're definitely going to get you on, Tom. You got to come hang out with us. Now, the Orionids, obviously, from the Orion constellation, you should see some activity all month, but the peak is the 20th. So I really need to get outside and find Orion's belt and focus in on that, because it looks like I'm looking at Perseus, and I see the Seven Sisters there, Pleiades. So I need to, I think that's Orion on the upper left, no? Now that I'm looking, that looks like Orion on the upper left. It definitely looks like Orion on the upper left. Where is Daryl? Daryl, where are you? It's been too long. I'm very hyper, can you tell? It's been so long. The heck with music. I just did that for the intro. Let's see. I need to light a stove. And I'll be honest. Maybe I can get Linda, and I know she'll do it for me now. She loves me. I have to tell you, she loves working with me. We have a blast. I am so honored. And I know some people, like her, dislike her. That's on you. I personally love her to death. She is a sweetheart. And we have fun off the air, on the air. We laugh. Last week we did the show, and I got to ask her, because she always does the first segment, the first hour by herself with a guest. Well, since last week, Nick Redfern was ill. He had bronchitis, even though he did speak, and I give him a lot of credit. He's a trooper. Nick Redfern's a trooper. He had bronchitis, and he still spoke at that conference this past weekend. He kept his obligation. And I heard from people that were there that, you know, he was doing the coughing and all that, but he roughed it out. So kudos to Nick Redfern. And he actually got to spoke to Nick Redfern last night for a bit because he was on Rosemary's show. And he got the illness while he was on a cruise. And that's why I'm scared to death of cruises. We all know, we hear all these stories about the germ ship. That's all it is, a germ ship full of germs. How many times we heard stories in the past of Carnival, the cruise ships, people getting sick? Well, I am not a big fan of cruises. That's just my own opinion. But anyway, and hello to Douglas. I'm looking at chat. And D, what is going on? And D, I'm going to tell you, Amanda's going to have to one day get the questions for Family Feud, because I got to go up against you. I got to be on the team to go up against chat. I've got to be on Team Skype. And Amanda, one day when she's got time, she's got to be the one to do the questions. We'll flip it, and I'll be on the Team Skype. And we're going to whip your you-know-what. So we're gonna romp. We got to get the Skype team assembled again. Jello and myself and Sherry, you know, it's Tana. It's amazing. It almost like, it feels like you lose a part of your family when you don't do this for a long time. It really does. It's like an emptiness. And I know people were messaging me and telling me, Bill, are you okay? Are you alive? What happened? Where have you been? Did the NSA get you? Did the aliens abduct you? What's going on? But the people that know me, Amanda, and the people that really talk to me all the time, like Lorraine and Amanda and a few others, they knew I was still alive. They knew I was still alive. They knew where to find me. Oh, here he goes. Here goes Keith with his Eagles. You know what? The Giants should go 0-16. I'll be happy. We need to draft a quarterback and some offensive linemen and a running back. We just got to redo the whole team. Right now, I don't even care about football. I'm worried about my Yankees. Forget about football, because it doesn't look good for the New York Rangers either, the hockey team. Right now, it's all about the now, and that the now is the New York Yankees. They're like the Dallas Cowboys. Either you love them or you hate them, and there's a lot of haters out there. But there's also a lot of Yankee fans, like last night in Cleveland, that ninth inning, after the Yankees went up 5-2. Let's go Yankees! I was just loving it. Just loving it. But I'll tell you, Houston's going to be tough. They're going to be tough. But if this Yankee team has surprised me, so if they've surprised me coming back from 0-2 deficit to come back and take the series. They were elimination game with Minnesota. They took care of business. So I am not doubting this team right now. And nobody had these expectations. I don't want to get into sports too much, but this was supposed to be a transitional year, the building year for next year and beyond. So they're fully exceeding expectations right now, and they're only going to get better because they got such a youth movement in the farm system. And watch Bryce Harper become a Yankee in 2019. Just watch out for that, because he always said, I want to be a Yankee. And he's going to want the Yankee money too. Big time money. And it's just great to, like I said, Dead Son, we got to get back together. I know we've been trying to get this going for you and get your gaming thing going and all that. I promise we will. It's just that I've been insanely busy. So we will definitely get to your games, software, the development that you've been doing. And we'll get you on Skype in the near future. So it's just been It's just been insane. And hello, I saw somebody else come in. I just missed it. Oh, weird guy. What's going on? And I know Bear's all hyped up for the football season, for the college football. Alabama. I won't say Sweet Home because he'll get upset. He will get upset. He can't stand the song. Oh, man, it's just funny. It's just funny to seeing everybody. And that's a good thing. We always have a great time here. And anybody that's watching. And I'm designing new shirts, new bumper stickers. I'm coming out with a whole new line of merchandise. And that's something I'm working on, too. I'm doing designs. Race is helping me with designs. As you see the banner on my YouTube site, it's different now. Race is helping me out. KGRA is making new shirts and bumper stickers and everything else. If you only seen a picture of my car right now, you would think I was absolutely losing my mind. I've got UFO stickers everywhere on the back of the car. I even bought a green alien head that you stick on the antenna on the top of your car. So I've got a little green alien on top of my antenna as I'm driving. I really wanted a mini UFO flag. I just couldn't find it to put on the antenna too. I'm going all out. I even got my customized license plates coming. I wanted Night Sky badly. It was taken. I was trying to come up with so many names. And I'm not going to say because everybody knows from New York, so I'm not going to give out my license plate. But I wanted Night Sky so bad, and it was taken. And I wasn't going to go NYTE because a lot of people, believe it or not, wouldn't figure out. They still think that brown chocolate milk comes from brown cows. Think about that. You think I'm going to think somebody's going to read a license plate NYTE Sky? What is that? They think it's Russian. So I got another set of plates that make sense. Yeah, see? Bear just made the comment. That's why I didn't say it. And for Pine Bush, like I said, it's going to be great to have Keith and Paul come back, which they said they're coming. Race is coming with the boss of the station. They're coming up. KGRA is bringing the trailer. They're going to do a live exclusive broadcast from Pine Bush. We're going to cover it live on the station because by that time KGRA TV will be there. And it'll be on Roku and all the other places. I don't want to give away too much because until it comes out. And we do have the KGRA app now on iPhone and Android. Go to iTunes and it's free, or the Android devices. So we have our KGRA app now. You know, it's like that song from the Jeffersons. Now we're moving on up to the east side, whatever it is. I am exhausted, but I am having so much fun. I've never had so much fun and enjoyment in the ufology field as I am now. Just working with everybody, with Richard Dolan producing the show and Micah Hanks, and because I had to do it because Race has been so busy. I think I'm going to eventually, because Race and I had a discussion, we're going to train a third producer. Because Race will always be the producer for Richard Dolan and Micah Hanks and Phenomenon Radio with Linda. But I have to tell you, I think he's testing me. Race, I know you're listening probably out there in the woods right now doing your paranormal investigation. If you are, I know you're testing me because you haven't talked to me in 2 weeks. And I got the station, so you must either trust me really good or this is a test. By the KGRA digital broadcasting station. So it's either way, it's good because you know what? I love challenges. I love it. Bring it. Bring it on. I get excited. I love challenges. I'm OCD-ish that way. If something is difficult, I'm going to resolve it. I'm going to solve it. I'm going to make it work. Either that or I'm going to have a heart attack and then it won't matter. But I'm not going to give up. So, yeah. It's been a lot of fun, and Commander Cobra is great, and I know I'm going to be able to convince Linda to come on the Skywatch. That is, I don't want to promise, but I think I can make that happen. And we'll have fun here, like we do, and we'll take questions. I'll actually open up my phone line that I have on Skype. Ask Linda Moulton questions live on air on a Skywatch. We'll do that. Right now, she's doing a show. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to put her business out there. But right now, she finished one show and she's doing another show. She's amazing. I was so impressed by working with her and the knowledge. And I didn't know. I was doing research on her because working with her, I had to know a little bit of talking points about her background and the documentaries she did. And she was an environmentalist back in the late 70s, early 80s. She won so many awards with her work. The Peabody Award, Emmy Awards. I mean, wow. I was reading like her resume. I was almost intimidated. Because now I'm working with her. And I never get nervous going on the air because I never think about going on the air. If you're going to do this kind of stuff, you can't think. And I'm just giving advice to people that do it because I've been doing it for quite a while now. I'm comfortable with it. When I first started this 5 years ago, I can remember my first call and I was stuttering. I couldn't get through it. I was so nervous. Now it's like just going on the phone and talking to friends. That's all it's like. That's the way I look at it. Just have a good time, go with the flow, and listen. That's the key. Listen. Listen to everything they're saying. Write down notes. Take down questions. That's how I am. That's how I work. This way, I'll be prepared and I'll respond. I used to do it with Jamie. I used to research the guest, write questions. I'd have 25 questions written for a 2-hour show. I'm really good at coming up with questions, and those that know me know that during any type of show. If I'm in chat, you'll see me. I'll come up with crazy questions. But now, like last week, I'm on with Linda. She's talking about her animal mutilation investigations back in the 70s and 80s. And I was like, whoa. I was like, I was in awe. And I'm writing questions. I had my mic on mute because I'm producing her show live. Writing questions. I had 20 questions. I only asked her 4. Because when you ask Linda a question, she's going to come out with the most technical, specific, research, investigative answer you can get. She's going to lay it all out there. She's an amazing person. I have to say, she's really an amazing person. And Daryl, you're back. Where the heck is Orion? I think it was up on my upper left. I think that's it on the upper left, the 3 stars there. Daryl, where would Orion be in my sky right now? Because otherwise I got to break out an app or just go to Stellarium. And yes, I know my screen looks with the black edges, but this was a last minute, let's say hello to everybody since it's been such a long time thing. So I'm just going to see who else is in chat. Matter of fact, let's just do a quick shout out to everybody. We have Bear and Carmen and Mauricio in California, and I hope you guys are okay with all those wildfires, the devastation and the loss of life. It's tragic, and our thoughts and prayers to everyone in California, as well as all the affected areas of the hurricanes. Unbelievable. I mean, have we been hit hard this year? A really horrific. Sad, really. Tragic. And it ain't over yet. And hello to Chris in the UK. And I've been talking to a lot of people in the UK these last few weeks. Oh, my. And it's a lot of fun. I tell you, these 2 guys that were a guest on a pre-record this morning, Stuart and Dean James Foy, psychic mediums in the UK. They were amazing. What a great pre-record that was for Rosemary Guiley for next week. Only here you can hear that because it's going to go off as live next week. Hello to Daryl in Colorado, our good friend, and pretty much a person I love to have in chat at all times. He's like the senior knowledgeable person regarding astronomy other than Mark D'Antonio. I know Mark enjoys having him, and I know P&K loves having him. We all love having Daryl with his background and his knowledge, and great guy. Dead Son, great friend, longtime friend, loyal friend, and I miss talking to Dead Son too. I miss talking to everybody. D in Canada, and of course Amanda in Canada, two lovely ladies. And D, you know I always mess with you. And D, there's times I go on the air on KGRA, and I will mention your name, as well as yours too, Amanda. And, of course, P&K. One thing about me, I never forget about my friends. I will always speak of my friends on the air when I know they're doing something in a positive, contributable way. And what Amanda does with Mark D'Antonio, whenever Mark's on, Mark will speak of Amanda. Give credit to where credit is due. And, of course, what the P&K space imaging guys do, Paul and Keith, because they do a great job. It's not because they're my friends. It's because it's the truth. And the same goes for Mark. And hello to our good friend and longtime friend, Duplicat. And Hudson Valley Guy videos, you know, you're going to have to come hang out with us in Pine Bush. We're going to have to get in communication. I think in November, I may be doing it. Still scheduled. Mark D'Antonio and two hosts of a show on KGRA coming to my house. And we're going to do a live show on KGRA with all three of them, which I've soon got to order mics because I still got 3 more slots on my mixer board. I keep forgetting to order them. And we're going to do a live skywatch from my house, and it's going to be broadcasted on the air and on YouTube. And that might be whenever the peak of the Leonids is in November. So that's planned. Hello to Ian, all great friends. James Small, Jello, of course, and Jello's great. One thing, Jello, I love you to death because you're always looking out for my best interests, and you got my back, and you're a great friend. And say hello to Mrs. Jello. And I wonder how much of the eating I've missed. I can only imagine. And I wonder how your house is doing. And if you want to check out a home being constructed on site live, just go to Obsessed House. And that's Jello's alternate channel where you can see the ongoing construction of his new home for him and Mrs. Jello. And I don't want to forget Sarah Fezio. She's not in chat, but she does great artwork. You need to check out her channel. Sarah and Fezio, Fezio. You'll be amazed at the artwork that she does down in Texas. It's incredible. And don't forget Clerkster. He does some really cool stuff in the UK. I miss hanging out in the Lizard Lounge. That's what I call it. And the fish tank. I love it. It's always good to see Chris around. Prow in Toronto. Prow's not far away, and Prow, you have no excuse. You need to get down here sometime. Nancy on LI. And one day, Nancy's going to come and hang out, too, with us. I'm going to go to the hotel here for the Pine Bush event because I want to see if I can get a discount if I can get X amount of people that are going to come stay in the hotel right down the road from me. Because if 20 people come, they can't obviously all stay in my house. It's just not possible. Last year we had 10, and it was interesting. Not that I'm complaining. We had a lot of fun, but it was tight. It was tight. It was a lot of fun, though, I got to tell you. Especially with Travis and Audrey and Heidi, Paul and Keith. Mark D'Antonio was here on one night, and Eric, Jade, myself, my friend Mike from high school. It was insane. We had a lot of fun, though. Tony the Night Owl. And Tony is the Night Owl. That's when we see Tony, usually after midnight. That's when we see Tony because he's probably at work or something. That's when we usually see Tony come into chat. And, of course, Vicky. So, Vicky, we love having you here too. Everybody and everybody that's watching. So I'm going to show you guys. And Tana, there's Tana. I see you coming on and I'm not looking at chat right now because I'm still looking at the participants list. So, yeah, I'm expecting my batteries to die too for the camera because they haven't been charged. So I have the warmer on the lens, the band. That's why it looks pretty good. I may have to give it a wipe, but so far it's holding pretty good considering it's very cold out there. You got a lot of dew going on, almost frost. It's that chilly out there. So I am going to go outside, check the camera, and actually Keith. Keith was talking about bringing a giant tent. And we could put it out the front of my house. Now, this year for Pine Bush, I warned my neighbors. For a week. And the nearest neighbor is 100 feet away. But I warned them, listen, don't be surprised if you hear noise. Not too much noise. It's not like we were playing loud music or anything. Even though Keith and I were drinking the vodka during live streams. That was fun. Keith, I don't know if you're around till I went to bed, but it was a lot of fun. We're going to possibly put a giant tent in front of the house. And all the guys, the women are going to sleep indoors in the comfort of the nice beds and whatever, couches. But the guys are going to maybe rough it out there in air mattresses. And I've got 10 of them. 10 twin air mattresses. So I've got plenty. So he's thinking of bringing some massive freaking tent. This is what Keith is like. Keith is crazy. He's just as crazy as all of us. That's the one thing that was great. And I say this all the time. We never met. We've known each other just like I'm talking to people in chat right now or those are on YouTube. We never met. We've just known each other through YouTube or chat or Skype, whatever. But it all started when we picked up Heidi. Well, my mother and I picked up Heidi at JFK Airport. It was instantaneous, the chemistry. It was fun from the moment we picked her up to the moment we dropped her 2 weeks later off at JFK, which hopefully Heidi will be back. And the good thing is now Norwegian Airlines flies from her airport in the UK, Chadwick, to the airport 10 minutes away from my house. So I don't have to drive to JFK anymore, which is great. So then we had, who was next to come? I think it was Eric. Eric is my best friend. Eric is, I've known Eric for years. And again, I met him 5 years ago in a chat room. He was into the same thing. We started the skywatching together. We did this 5 years ago. He's coming for Thanksgiving. He's like a brother from another mother. That's how close we've become. Then we had Paul and Keith come. And again, instant chemistry. We all got along. We had so much in common, the interests. Keith has such a great sense of humor. He is a very knowledgeable guy, but also, and this is almost like Goodfellas, you're a funny guy. He is hysterical. He's got such a humor to him. It's awesome. And Paul is a sweetheart. Paul is quiet, but again, very knowledgeable, intelligent guy. Just a lovable guy. Paul is awesome. And Jade is the man. Jade is an in-your-face. He's almost got the same personality as Keith. I thought they were going to clash because of that. Nope. The two of those together, look out. It's over. It's over. It was a lot of fun. And then, of course, Mark D'Antonio. What a great person. I wish all of you could meet him in person. He is the most egoless, down-to-earth, grounded person. One of the guys person. He's just a great guy. At his Clem impersonation is something to die for because he's so funny. Oh, my God. It's hysterical when he does Clem. Mark is one of the most intellectual individuals that I've ever met. His knowledge is beyond anything I've come across. He's amazing. So we had Travis Walton was here. Travis is a really quiet guy, but then he got to relax. Travis started playing his guitar, and he was just hanging out. The conversation was flowing. It wasn't like a bunch of rabid fans. Travis, can you tell us what happened when in the woods that night? No. Everybody was respectful. Wherever the conversation went, it went. And Travis felt right at home. It was awesome. So this is what happened this year. Last year was Peter Robbins, Jennifer Stein, Larry Warren, and a few others. This year, so far, confirmed for Pine Bush it is. We've got Show Acosta. Show does been doing UFO investigations and research in New York State for decades. Mark D'Antonio's coming back. Who else do I got? Rosemary Ellen Guiley is going to be presenting. And she's written 50 books. She's involved in the community for research in her area. She's perfect to speak at Pine Bush. I'm working on some other names. I won't reveal it here because they're not confirmed, but I've got some interesting ideas. I did speak to the state director of MUFON for New York. He's definitely interested. Peter Robbins is interested in coming back. I'm working on 3 other names, and all I need is 1, really. But I want to see if I can get one of the 3. I think I could get 2 out of the 3. For sure. But I got to pick now and decide. So it's going to be really fun next year again. And again, like I said before, race is going to be coming. So the station's going to be exclusively covering the Pine Bush event for next year. And KGRA is going to be covering an exclusive conference, a big one, early next year. I cannot reveal the name because you never know who's listening. Because we do live in the era of spies and trolls. And they just love to run with the information. Guess what I heard on Bill's channel? This is what they're up to. This is what they're doing. You have that. Hate to say it, but that's the truth. That's just the way it is. It's a shame. But that does happen. So that's why I got to be mindful about what I say. So yeah, it's been kind of crazy. And like I said, all are welcome. Believe me, if anybody who's been here knows when I say that, it's the real deal. You just ask anybody that came this year, and they'll tell you what it's like to be here. And good night to Vicky. She's got to run, so have a great night. And Jello hopefully will come. So that'd be cool if he could come over at some point. A host for a radio show is going to possibly try to come. He might actually fly in the night of or the night before. I'm serious. He's going to fly in. Commander Cobra may actually fly in for the event. So it's just going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. So right now, I'm just going to give you guys, I'm going to try to see if this will work. This is tonight's interview that Linda did with Grant Cameron. And why I'm going to play it, it's because I've never done this before. And I just want to give you guys a little idea of what went on tonight. And let's just say, when you're producing, and I wish I could share my screen. I've done it in the past. You guys seen me, what it is like to produce. When you're producing a show of this magnitude, because Phenomenon Radio is one of the most popular downloaded shows on our network. It's up there with Fade to Black, Richard Dolan, Gralien Report, which is Micah Hanks' show, And I love working with Micah. He's a great guy. He is another whip. He is smart as a whip. That guy is incredible. And Dolan's on a whole level himself too. But it's one thing to produce. Good night, Prow. And Prow, you got to get hooked up on. You got to call me up on Skype sometime. Uh-oh. That son's moving out of the bunker. But anyway, it's one thing to produce and run chat and get the chat involved in the show interactively. And it's a whole different ball game when you're producing and you're running ads and intros and outros, and then you have to go on the air yourself to do announcements. I've never done that while producing. Now, the reason I say that is, oh yeah, I've gone on shows like as a co-host or whatever and said, okay, we're going to go to break now. We'll be right back on the blah, blah, blah show in just a few minutes, whatever. But then reading off the screen and going back and forth on the controls and on my mixer and on my keyboard and reading this off a screen, oh, was it dicey tonight. Never did it before. And now I know I learned a big lesson. Don't use WordPad or anything else trying to read a screen while trying to run the network at the same time. Did I learn that lesson tonight? So from now on, I'm going to have to write out what I'm going to say and print it, hold it in my hand while I'm playing with the other hand on the buttons to get the show. Oh, my God, it was a nightmare. But I think I did pretty good. And you guys are going to hear. And it's Friday the 13th. That's right. It is Friday the 13th. I'm surprised my camera's still going, to be honest, without the battery dying. Anyway, I'm going to play, if I can get it to work. Let's see if I can tie it all in now. And again, I haven't used OBS in two months. This is why everything looks the way it does. Let's see if I can get the stream. So it was Grant Cameron and Nancy Tremaine. Nancy just wrote a book about her experiences that Grant actually published her book about her experiences. And Grant went on talking about Tom DeLonge, about the press release that they did yesterday for pretty much trying to get investors to give them money, pretty much. I didn't buy it. That's just me. I didn't buy not one thing. I'm not going to get crazy on it because I ranted enough about it. I am not buying this at all. So let's see if I can get this going. All right, so this is tonight. And I'm going to skip a little. And I'm going to show you the parts what I'm talking about when I went on.
Craft. And then back to her light beam. Other witnesses were two more police officers in a marked police
You know what
car,
I need to do one day is record the
off-the-air over the next 50
commentary.
years of her life.
It's
Nancy
priceless.
would be haunted by the fact that her last memory was of the immobilized police car and her jumping up and down excitedly, waving her arms at the UFO. This week, Nancy Tremaine is celebrating the release of a book she has written entitled Symbiosis, now available at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and Instagram. Symbiosis is the interaction between two different organisms living in close physical association and usually to the advantage of both. Nancy says the title sums up her relationship with the intelligence in that 1961 UFO that she came to discover has been with her since young childhood. After this short break, we will begin with Grant Cameron's own UFO lights and beam experiences in 75 to 76 that spurred him to investigate the UFO phenomena and to organize the Winnipeg Experiencers Group. And then Nancy Tremaine will let us see through her eyes and mind the large disc and beam that linked her to a non-human intelligence.
Thank you, Linda. And you're listening to Phenomenon Radio live on the KGRA digital broadcasting station with Emmy Award-winning investigative journalist and Earth Files reporter and editor Linda Moulton Howe. Tonight's special guests, Grant Cameron and Nancy Tremaine, will join the show right after these messages. And I could tell I got to definitely work on the...
Hi, it's AJ with Vibes, Mind, Body, Spirit. The Vibes Tribe seeks to assist you in creating and maintaining an uplifting and balanced state of being in your personal space.
And editor, Linda Moulton Howe.
Between two different organisms living in close physical association and usually to the advantage of both. Nancy says the title sums up her relationship with the intelligence in that 1961 and with her since young childhood. After this short break, we will begin with
an editor, Linda Moulton Howe. An editor, I'm trying to skip here. It's not easy. Tonight,
theme that linked her. An
editor, Linda Moulton Howe. Tonight,
depression and emotional pain, a free stick of Palo Santo, colds, headaches, and asthma.
Not to mention the 10-year warranty. Try it risk-free with a 60-day. Not to mention the 10-year warranty. Try it risk-free with a 60.com.
Thanks for joining us tonight for Phenomenon Radio. For Linda's interview with her special guests, Grant Cameron and Nancy Tremaine. And now, here's your host, Linda Moulton Howe.
Hey, thanks, Bill, and welcome, Grant Cameron and Nancy Tremaine to Phenomenon Radio.
This is the first time I'm listening to it.
Nancy, I'm really looking forward to talking with you in the second hour about your amazing experience in your life and your new book.
Was there a time lapse? You really don't know.
And then I actually might play the show I did with animal mutilations last week. That was great.
He's wearing a hood.
Of my own, joining up with some physicists, and you would know a technique.
Provides an uplifting scent to raise your vibration.
Like a cubic centimeter of space, and interacting with the intelligence, and she will tell you they are telling her stuff.
This 50-minute uninterrupted segment of Phenomenon Radio is brought to you by OnlineVibes.com, your personal connection to mind, body, spirit, committed to connecting you with the healing modalities that can manifest a true and healthy change in your life. Visit the website at OnlineVibes.com. That's vibes with a Z. Tonight's special guest, Nancy Tremaine, will be back with Linda right after these messages. Oh, I blew that one. I went, I blew that one. This is it. I'm telling you, I'm my worst critic. I tell you.
Hi, it's AJ with Vibes, Mind, Body, Spirit. The Vibes Tribe seeks
board the Crown Princess and sail with us.
KGRA digital broadcasting station. This is funny to hear myself.
Investigations by...
Welcome back to Hour 2 of Phenomenon Radio here on the KGRA digital broadcasting station with host Linda Moulton Howe and her guest Nancy Tremaine. To begin the second half of tonight's show, here is Linda Moulton Howe.
Thanks, Bill. And Nancy, I want to
pretty much
welcome you, and in this first segment, what I'm going to destroyed.
This is from tonight. This is 2 hours ago. Well, about 3 hours ago.
I sent you an illustration. Destroyed.
It's up on the archives now.
It's on planet Earth. Have some other dimension penetrates here. My website, earthfiles.com.
And David Chase for the beautiful cover. And Michael Moulton for his beautiful
She was thanking
chapter,
all the people at the end of the show about that helped contributed to her book.
And my gratitude to all of them. Thank you.
Nancy Tremaine.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Nancy. And Bill, take us away.
Thank you, Linda and Nancy, for that fascinating discussion and interview. And for Linda Moulton Howe, Grant Cameron, and Nancy Tremaine, thanks for listening. Stay tuned now for 3 hours of Jimmy Church and Fade to Black live right here on the station that brings you the very best in paranormal talk radio topics on the internet, KGRAradio.com. Good night, everyone. not bad. The ending wasn't bad. I'm not used to that. That's the first time I ever did that. So that's my own self-analysis. Let's just say that. Oh, man. I'm going to have to work on that. So, yeah, you can go to the KGRARadioArchives.com for all the shows. I usually edit the shows right after a live show, and it takes me about 40 minutes, and then it's up in the archives. I don't wait. And that was Linda Moulton Howe's show, Phenomenon Radio. And I'm actually going to play now, without messing around, her last week's show, Animal Mutilations. It was fascinating. So this way I could sit back because I am really mentally exhausted from all day working on the station. So maybe we'll stream for a couple more hours. I'm going to go outside and play with the camera. Try to change the settings a bit. And Chris in the chat room, don't make me laugh right now, I'll tell you. It's almost PPP time, literally. So let's do that. Let's play the last week's show. What happened was, just to give you a little background, Nick Redfern was supposed to be her guest, but he fell ill. I discussed this earlier. He was on a cruise ship, got a virus, ended up having a bronchial infection. He couldn't do the show. So Linda came to me and said, Bill, I have an idea, and I've never done this before. How about I talk about some of the research I've done in the past, and then in the second hour, you can ask me questions. And I was like, whoa, I've never done this before, not especially with Linda Moulton Howe. I said, sure, I'll do it, because I always love a challenge. And I'll tell you one thing, and I said this earlier, I'm never usually nervous to go on the air. I was nervous last week because I've never been on with Linda Moulton Howe. I've been on with Dolan at times, a few of the other names, but never with Linda. I tell you, I felt a little bit, I would say, intimidated to go on the air with Linda Moulton Howe because I'm hyper. And I'm that kind of person where I got questions. And I want to jump in and ask questions. But with Linda, you got to be patient because you got to let her get off what she has to say. And that might take 5 to 10 minutes just for her to get off on one of your answers. And I know at one point I interrupted her. And she goes, no, wait. You got to hear what he said. And I was like, okay. So I was ready to jump in with questions. I had, no joke. Let me see if I can. I still got the questions up from tonight. Let's see. I'm going to see the questions now that I wrote. Now what happened was I'm producing, and Nick is doing a lot better now. He was live on a show last night that I did. He sounded fine. He said he's feeling better. He's back home in Texas. So Nick is recuperating and he's doing well again. So that's great. Let me see if I could find them. My computer's all out of whack right now. So she was talking about her research in animal mutilation. She did a documentary, Strange Harvest, based on animal mutilations. So I'm listening to her for the first hour. Obviously, I've got my mic on mute. And I'm jotting down questions because she's saying to me, Bill, you better ask me some questions. And I said, okay, I'll be ready. And she trusted me with that. I guess she knows how I am. Let's see. Here it is. So before you listen to it, well, actually, I'll run this after. You'll see the questions that I had for her. And she told me to save them because we may do another show together. If a guest backs out or cancels on her, I'm going to go on the air with her again. So I'm really excited about that. And we really get along. We hit it off. And like I said, in the future, I'll bring her on a Skywatch. But she's a hard person to get down because she's so busy. She travels all over the world. So let's do that. Let's play the show. This way I can fall back and enjoy it with everybody that's watching on YouTube and hang out with my good friends in the chat room, which I haven't done in so long, and I just want to hang out with them. So let's find the show, which I'm going to do right now. And I'll probably play the whole thing, then go to bed. It's a 2-hour show. Actually, it was 2 hours and 3 minutes. We went over on that show. Because I was producing and I was having so much fun, I forgot about the time. I actually forgot about the time and I ran over and I almost messed up Fade to Black. That was last Thursday. And everything's live, so let's see. Phenomenon. Here it is. Can you imagine how many archive shows I have in my computer? Whew. Everything on that KGRA archives is on my computer. All right, let's go.
Welcome to Phenomenon Radio, the show that covers thought-provoking breakthroughs in the fields of UAP UFOs to discover fascinating truths, first-hand accounts, and investigative insights into the expanding confluence of physical and mental exposure to this worldwide phenomenon. Hosted by Emmy award-winning investigative journalists, Earth Files reporter and editor, Linda Moulton Howe. And now, leading off tonight's program, here's Linda Moulton Howe.
For this October 5th, 2017 Phenomenon Radio broadcast, we had UK best-selling author Nick Redfern scheduled to talk about his new release, The New World Order book. But Nick has been struggling with a bronchial virus that won't let go of his larynx and lungs yet, so he is still coughing a lot with a voice that breaks up. We have rescheduled Nick for Phenomenon Radio Live on Thursday, October 26th. So today, on this October 5th broadcast, I am going to go back in time to September 1st, 1979. That's when I began researching bizarre animal deaths that were making headlines, as they had periodically for a decade or so. Much of my television work as director of special projects for the CBS affiliate in Denver involved stories about environmental issues. I thought perhaps I was dealing with a contamination story. Maybe the government had accidentally released some kind of poison into the land and was randomly spot-checking tissue from grazing animals to monitor the contamination spread. That was the context in which I began the investigation to produce the documentary film I came to title A Strange Harvest. But I quickly learned from newspaper files that the strange bloodless mutilations had been reported worldwide for a long time. Further, it did not make sense that the government would brazenly leave the carcasses to be discovered by a shocked public. Within a month, after talking with dozens of ranchers, law enforcement officials, and fellow journalists who had investigated the intense mutilation activity, especially in the peak years of 1975 to 1976, I heard one off-the-record UFO story after another. A Wyoming rancher said that an orange glowing disc the size of a football field had approached him one night in 1976 while he was watering a field of barley. That same year, the rancher found 2 of his cows bloodlessly mutilated. The description of orange or white glowing lights and or beams of light shining down from something silently hovering above pastures was a common theme among people that I interviewed. The documentary shifted from environmental contamination to an accumulation of human testimony that implicated the presence of extraterrestrial mutilators. Throughout my work, my definition of extraterrestrial, also ET, includes alien intelligences from this universe, other dimensions, and other timelines. After A Strange Harvest was first broadcast on May 25, 1980, I received hundreds of phone calls and perhaps 1,000 letters from people not only in the United States, but coming to me from around the world with their own stories about encounters with strange lights and mutilated animals. I proceeded to work on another documentary called A Radioactive Water about uranium contamination of drinking water in a Denver suburb. while the harvest correspondence files grew and grew. It was as if each day I walked in two worlds, one without UFOs in it, and a parallel one in which UFOs were dominant. And today on Phenomenon Radio, Bill Skywatcher in the New York KGRA studios is going to ask me questions as I go back in time to the strangest investigations of my professional career, beginning after this brief break in Walsenburg, Colorado, and the very first bloodless, trackless cattle mutilation of so many that I would come to investigate for months and years after.
Hi, it's AJ with Vibes, Mind, Body, Spirit. The Vibes Tribe seeks to assist you in creating and maintaining an uplifting and balanced state of being in your personal space. Palo Santo is a mystical tree that grows on the coast of South America. Palo is loved by many for its energetic cleansing and healing properties and is also popularized for its heavenly presence in keeping your energy grounded and clear. Burning Palo provides an uplifting scent to raise your vibration and is also beneficial for relieving stress, anxiety, depression, and emotional pain. Palo Santo is also known for relieving symptoms of the common cold, headaches, and asthma. We offer Palo Santo in resin, powder, or by the stick. Go to onlinevibes.com for all of your vibration elevation needs and receive a free stick of Palo Santo with any online purchase over $25. Shop onlinevibes.com, that's onlinevibez.com, and get your vibes on today.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRAradio.com.
I remember back in October of 1979, I had been working for about 4 weeks on trying to get to the bottom of what are all of these cattle, horses, goats, sheep, pigs, chickens, even cats and dogs. What is happening out in the landscape of Colorado and the West? And I was learning it was happening in Canada and other countries of the world that would leave an animal usually lying on either a right side or a left side. And if you took the typical cattle or horse mutilation, as you're looking at the sky-facing head, neck, and body, there would be an ear. The sky-facing ear would be cut out right at the skull in a perfect circle about the size of a quarter. You would come down to where the sky-facing eye was, and there would be a perfect circle, as if you made it on a compass or contractor in school. And there the hide would be removed down to clean, dry, bloodless bone. The eyeball, the eyelids, the eyelashes would all be gone inside of that perfect circle. Then you would come down a tiny bit more to the mouth and the jaw, upper and lower. And the vast majority had what looked like a keyhole of upper and lower hide flesh taken from the jaw. Very smooth, very clean, very bloodless. Inside of the mouth, the tongue would be removed deep in the throat. No blood. Coming down the body, male or female, female udder, that would often be taken in a big oval, so the entire udder was removed, or precisely half of the udder, looking like the heel of a shoe on one side where the udder had been, and the other half of the udder looking absolutely perfect, as if it could function, but it was only half of an udder with no milk, no fluid, no blood anywhere coming out of anywhere on the udder. In the male, it would be a very clean, hide deep only oval that would remove the penis, the testicles, and then in the rear of both animals, the female almost 90% of the time, the vaginal tissue with the rectal tissue would be removed in a hole 6 to 9 inches in diameter, penetrating into the body of the animal, usually about 8 to 12 inches. In the male, it would be rectal tissue that would be also removed in a very dry, clean hole going into the animal. That is classic. And with that as my research starting out, and having, even in the first 2 weeks at the TV station, the CBS station where I was director of special projects in Denver, a office where I was calling up people, having them come down to talk to me before I started with a crew to go out to locations. One of those people that I asked was a Catholic priest who was famous in Denver back in '79 for doing exorcisms. And I had him come down to my office at KMGH TV in Denver, and I had laid out on a table some of the photographs that I had gotten at that point from some sheriffs and ranchers showing the classic animal mutilations. And I simply asked the Catholic priest to look at these animals and to tell me, did he recognize anything about the patterns, the ear, the eye, the jaw flesh, the tongue, the genitals, and the rectum and vaginal area cored out? Was there anything about that pattern that he knew about or recognized in the history of people taken over by something that the Catholic Church would exorcise? And he was in his black garment with that stiff white collar, and he went over and he started looking quietly at the photos. And he turned to me and he said, "Linda, I've done a lot of exorcisms. And for what we deal with, quite often we are dealing with blood. And there's no blood here. And I don't recognize anything in these patterns that compares to anything that I have dealt with in exorcising in the Catholic Church." So right there in the first 2 weeks of my research, I was hearing the elimination of what seemed to be a mantra out in the public, that what was responsible for animal mutilations were satanic cults, predators, or disease. Those were the three that you kept hearing like a mantra. So knowing that I didn't have an answer, knowing just with the phone calls that I was talking to some ranchers who were talking about beams of light that they had seen coming from glowing objects in the sky, I remember my puzzlement. What in the world am I moving into here? Because my initial impression that it might be some kind of secret government project, it was beginning to deteriorate as a hypothesis amid all this high strangeness. And then came the first trip with my cameraman and my audio, and that was the epiphany. That was what tipped everything for me, that we were dealing with something that was beyond human understanding. My crew was Richard Lerner, photographer, Mark O'Kane, audio, and myself. We got in an airplane and we flew down south to southern Colorado, and we got into an area called Walsenburg. And there we were introduced to some deputies who had just the week before had been investigating an animal mutilation that somebody had called into the sheriff's office. And so the crew and I travel with the deputies out to this location. And now try to imagine that you're pulling up where there's tall grass. There's no easy access to anything where we were. We got there on a road, then the whole rest of it is we have to walk half a mile. And we are walking through grass, and we can see in front of us tall, thick willows. We can see branches of a tree above the thick willows. My cameraman said to me, I wonder what it's going to be like trying to push this way through. And he's got this big, heavy film camera that we were using back in '79. And we get to the outside of these willows. And the men, the deputies and my cameraman and the audio, they start pushing. And they are having to use real force to push their way through these thick, thick, thick willows. And I'm following my cameraman. And when we get to where this tree, this big tree with branches coming down on top of the willows is, he ducks way down. I duck down behind him, really not fully understanding where we are going. But the deputies are leading and we're following. And the next thing I know, down as far as I can get underneath the branches that are going to the ground, forming almost like a tent of tree branches coming down on the willows in the ground. We come out in like a room built by this tree, and here is a black and white steer. It is lying on the ground. The tree branches are arching above our heads so high and coming down to the ground around us that the men can stand up underneath these branches. And one of the deputies says, Linda, this is how we found this animal. It's been here for a week. And he starts showing me. Here's a perfect circle of the hide removed around the left eye. It was lying on its right side. The eyeball, eyelid, eyelashes are removed. There is a perfect keyhole excision of the tissue at the jaw. At the belly is a perfect oval. It was approximately 6 or 7 inches wide and about 3 or 4 inches in an oval. It was the removal of the penis, and then coming back to the rear was this most perfect circular hole penetrating into the rectum. This is my very first close-up with one of these animals in this very confined space made by the trees and the willows. And the deputy said, Miss Howe, I'm curious, what do you notice in here that is strange? And as I'm looking at the animal on the ground and looking at the branches above, forming like an artificial ceiling above us, it hit me. There was not one broken branch, not in the tree, nothing broken on the ground. This animal was lying on it like pristine ground, and I said that. Well, how would this big 1,700-pound animal get in here underneath all these branches without the branches being broken? Because how else could it possibly have pushed its way through those willows? It still would have encountered the wall of branches down to the floor. And the deputy said, that's exactly what hit us. Linda, however this animal got in here, it had to come from some place, we think, above, but it could not have come through the branches or the willows. Within a week of that incredible start, I was hearing from ranchers who knew I was now working on this documentary, trying to get to the bottom of the animal mutilation mystery. So I started getting phone calls coming into the station. And I remember one of them was from a family, and they wanted me to know that they had had the experience of the wife in the ranch family walking out to go get some supplies from a shed one night late at 10 or 11 o'clock in the night. It was out east in the ranch lands east of Denver. And all of a sudden, a light that it started out white as a beam and seemed to change to red, it came right down around the woman on the ground as she was trying to walk. And she was completely paralyzed in the light. She was panicked and terrified, and the light let go of her. But this was one of the ranches where there had already been mutilations in previous years, and the ranchers had already, among themselves, had begun to associate the appearance of round glowing objects, beams that could come down to the ground. And eventually I would hear to my face, as I went out to see these ranchers, one or two of them had seen one of their animals either rising in a beam of light or being lowered in a beam of light. They were scared. They did not go into the pasture where they were seeing the beam during the night hours. They waited until sunlight in both cases. Then they found the animal, their own animal, that was now obviously what was going up, or in one case down in a beam, is lying there in the pasture, dead and mutilated, no blood on the excisions. And because I started hearing those kinds of stories early on, combined with what the deputies and my crew and I experienced in Walsenburg, Colorado, I knew that I was not in any kind of a normal investigation. My career, I graduated from Stanford University with a master's degree in communication. My documentary work there was with the Stanford Medical Center, with the Stanford Linear Accelerator. I was working, doing a documentary on preemie babies. I was doing, my master's film was on getting computers to analyze the bombardment of subatomic particles at the Stanford Linear Accelerator. Everything that I was interested in and have been doing was hard science. I was used to looking for facts. I was used to verification by doing studies or having laboratory tests. So what began to be my huge priority? I have got to get one of these animals that is fresh enough to get tissue so that I can get it to a veterinarian for pathology. And here was another big problem. Because ranchers were afraid of being ridiculed if they reported animal mutilations, sometimes they would find an animal that might be still warm to touch. Sheriff Tex Graves in Logan County said that was one of the most amazing things to him as a sheriff, starting in around 71, 72, and then increasing in numbers up through 76 and 77. He said, Linda, we were getting 3 to 4 calls a day on some days, and these animals were all warm to touch, which meant we are arriving. These animals have not been dead long enough to cool down, and yet every single one of them had the ear, eye, tongue, jaw, genitals, and rectum cord out. And then, with my wanting to try to get a veterinarian to do some kind of a necropsy on fresh, because you've got to have the tissue to a veterinarian in no more than 36 hours after death, preferably 24 hours, and ranchers didn't want to report them. So I talked about this with retired Sheriff Tex Graves. He said, well, I'll tell you another problem. On one of the first mutilations that I went out on in the early 70s, he said it was a large cow and her excisions were perfect. There was no blood. I had never seen anything like it. There were no tracks around her body in the dust. He said, I called up the local veterinarian. I had that veterinarian come out, and I asked him, I want to see the entire necropsy done right here, fresh. I don't want anything to wait. I don't want any possibility that we are going to delay this necropsy. Do it, please, in the pasture now. And I've done the same thing myself, and it takes about 4 hours to do a complete necropsy on a large cow. And as the veterinarian is down on his knees and Sheriff Tex Graves is standing watching, the veterinarian got to a point, he said, Sheriff, I want you to take a look. And the veterinarian had one of his hands down in the chest. Remember, it's the veterinarian that is opening up the animal. There were no cuts, nothing on the chest or in the chest when they found the animal. This is now the necropsy. And he had the pericardium, which is a transparent, translucent sac that completely encompasses and protects the heart of a cow. Humans have pericardiums as well, protection around this vital organ, the heart. In a typical adult cow, you can range something like 7 inches by 9 inches by 11 inches. These are huge muscle organs inside of grown cows. So when the sheriff looked down and he is seeing this transparent, sort of shiny material on the index finger of the vet, the veterinarian said, "Sheriff, this is the pericardium. It's supposed to be surrounding the heart. There's no heart here, and there is no clotted blood here. There is nothing in the chest. And this pericardium that I'm showing you, I have examined it with my fingers. There is no excision. There is no hole. How could this big heart in this adult cow have gotten out of this pericardium, out of this cow's chest, when there was no excision into the body of this animal anywhere near the chest?" And then the sheriff said, that veterinarian looked at me and his voice sounded angry. And he said, "Don't you ever call me out on another one of these, because I'm not going to stand up to a group of reporters and tell them that what has happened to this animal or any others is not possible in human technology." Well, that was really another big step for me to realize that the ranchers didn't want to go on camera. The veterinarians didn't want to go on camera. How am I going to confirm all of this evidence that I'm beginning to gather from people who have been there? Plus, I am beginning to see more and more of these animals. Walsenburg was the beginning, and I found myself going to many different types of animal mutilations and having a discussion even with a man in the U.S. Forestry Service who showed me black and white photographs of deer and elk that had been mutilated exactly as I was seeing in the cattle and the horses, and learning that the same patterns of excisions were occurring on every domestic animal that you could think of, in addition, deer and elk. And today in 2017, I have had many cases on reindeer and on kangaroos in Australia with exactly the same bloodless excisions. This is a worldwide phenomenon in 2 hemispheres. It has been going on, as far as I know, from the beginning of the 20th century, not just starting in the 1960s. And it continues to this day with patterns of exactly what I'm describing that I encountered for the first time in 79, but continuing right now. There's been a spate since 2002. One of the official statistics in a combination of Argentina and Chile, that the version of the Department of Agriculture in Argentina, starting back in 2002, said between 2002 and 2005 that they had at least 3,000 reports of mutilated animals to federal, state, and local authorities on exactly what I'm talking to you now. So it's ongoing. It's ongoing today. But now what I would like to do is to take you through some of the memories that I found myself stunned. It was like starting out on a path, like Alice in Wonderland, and coming to a mirror. And if you decide to go through that mirror, you haven't got a clue what's on the other side. But I felt like I could not go through the looking glass mirror, because all of the physical evidence that was everywhere that the crew and I were going of these animals, and the testimonies of ranchers and veterinarians and law enforcement, was that we were on a path that was taking us to something that we had never encountered before. But to look away or to stop because it was so strange, I couldn't do that. I am first and foremost, and always have been, a very, very curious and left brain kind of person. And I really, really wanted to find out what was doing this, to face it and report about it. So now, here is how strange some of the cases became. I got a phone call from a place called Cripple Creek. It's south of Denver, very rural, mountainous area. And the person who called me was the rancher. And this is because everybody knew that I was working on these investigations. And when my documentary, A Strange Harvest, was first broadcast, it was a 90-minute special on May 25th, 1980. It was featured in TV Guide. It was featured in interview with me in the Rocky Mountain News. There was a lot of publicity about this documentary that I was producing to be a 90-minute special that would air from 8 to 9:30 p.m. on the CBS station in Denver on May 25th, 1980. So leading up to that date and after were all of these people that were reaching out to me. And so this is one that I'm sharing that goes yet another dimension in my mind about the same kind of impossibility of the heart missing inside of a pericardium, inside of the chest of a large cow without any surgical excisions on the outside of that body. But this is going to a little bit different angle. The owner called me and said, 48 hours ago, I had a beautiful 9-month-old stallion. He was the pride of my entire farm. We have a corral. The boards of the corral, the poles of the corral are 30 feet from the back door of our house. And that door that you go 30 feet to the corral is right in the kitchen. So when we're in the kitchen, we can look out this door and we can look at the horse and the other horses we had in the corral. And every evening at 7 p.m. and every morning at 7 a.m., since I had this young stallion from a baby growing, I would go out and personally, I would feed this beautiful horse. And this one morning, which was when he called me, it was 2 days before, he said, I got to the kitchen and I looked out and I could see my beautiful stallion was lying. And in this case, this particular horse, I believe, was lying on its left side. So the right side of the body was sky facing. And he said, I was so shocked because I had fed this horse only 12 hours before at 7 in the evening, and he was healthy and the horses were happy. And now it's lying on the ground and it looks to me like it's dead. And I ran to the door and I opened, I ran down the steps. I went through into the corral and he said, and I stopped. Linda, I can't believe what I was looking at. The rear of this horse, 12-inch diameter hole that was going in like a cone. He said it was as if something had the ability to take a cone-shaped plug of the entire rear of my horse out. I was so astonished that I kneeled down. He said, I took my fingers to inside of this big hole in my beautiful horse. And he said it felt like sandpaper. It was so dry. Linda, what could do this? Where is the blood? How could this be dry when it's taking out the entire 12-inch? And he said, I think it went 12 inches in a funnel into the horse. And then he walked around to the head. The sky-facing left eye had turned a bluish silver, he said, sort of like satin or metal. And I knew that probably sounded like radiation, but after doing some research at the time, I found that kind of metallic, glassy, shiny surface on an eyeball, whether it's human, animal, it usually can be linked to exposure to radiation. But the horse had been alive and well in this corral in this rural Cripple Creek 12 hours before, running around. And then the farmer rancher said, my wife, she said, the dogs, they sleep. They slept with 3 large dogs every night in their bedroom. And he said the bedroom is right up against the same wall as the kitchen. You have the kitchen, you have a wall, it's the bedroom. Linda, the bedroom and the kitchen are the same 30 feet from the corral. We have our 3 big dogs in the bedroom. And my wife was reminding me, we never woke up. The dogs never barked. How could something have come into that corral 30 feet from where we were sleeping with 3 dogs that we trusted to be guard dogs and never a peep? What happened in this corral? And he started to cry on the phone. I have never forgotten that. And I realized that here I was sitting in my office in Denver, Colorado at Channel 7. I had been starting into this mystery with a lot of options, and that there was nothing in any of my experience, education, academic, or otherwise, in which I could even begin to answer that crying rancher's question to me. And I still think of it as one of those pivotal moments where I so wanted to be able to answer his question, that there was nothing that was going to turn me away from continuing to investigate animal mutilations. So as you go further now into my path, A Strange Harvest was broadcast on May 25th, 1980, and it was like a bomb went off. It was the largest rating in Arbitron and Nielsen, which they used at the time, of anything that had ever been broadcast, of a produced, like a documentary or any kind of a show on the CBS station. Since then, it hasn't been exceeded either. The mailroom started dragging gray duffel bags full of handwritten and typed letters about A Strange Harvest. And remember, I started the research in September of 79. I worked 18-hour days without 1 day break for 9 months. And the broadcast was on May 25th, 1980. At that time, there are no computers, no faxes. The only way we communicated was with landline telephones, telegraph, or mail that would be typed or handwritten. So in all of these duffel bags that were being dragged into my office with all of these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of letters, somebody had to type it or hand write it or cursive. And as I began to open up all of this correspondence, and then there were all the phones, the switchboard couldn't keep up with all of the phone calls coming to my office either. And generally, this was what everybody was saying. I've never told anyone this before. And then I would be reading about missing time, more animal mutilations. I remember an insurance salesman in Denver, very successful. He called me. He said, Linda, my mother-in-law and I saw the most amazing thing. I saw your TV show and it reminded me. He said, we were just watching the kids play in the front yard And all of a sudden, it looked like a very low, he said, that's what caught our attention, a very low black silhouette of a helicopter approaching so low that it alarmed me because my kids were playing out front. And he said this helicopter kept coming. The mother-in-law and he are watching, and it came right over the front yard. And they had called the kids to them before it got there. And then he said, and he drew this for me in the letter that he first sent, and then we followed up in a telephone call. He drew what they saw. The black helicopter that made not one chopper sound, was completely silent, transformed right in front of them into a square. He said it was a perfect dark square. And the square started rising vertically up in the sky, and then it transformed into a silver disc, and then the silver disc just popped away. He said it wasn't like it flew away like an airplane. It just popped out, and we saw this whole transformation, both of us. That I remember as being the very first time that I was introduced to the concept that I could be dealing with some kind of a phenomenon that could shapeshift any way it wanted to. And that then went to other reports that I had gotten, one from a physicist. He had a physicist background, but his real degree was in engineering. And he worked at Sandia Labs in Albuquerque. And he called me. And he said that on a business trip, going from Albuquerque up to Sterling, Colorado, in that area on something that the Sandia Lab was doing, you come to a place when you're going on the freeway outside of Denver, there comes a stretch where you will be paralleling a railroad track. It's that way today. And he said, so he's on the freeway headed north, and there is that railroad track. And he said, I realize there are two boxcars, and they're right there on that railroad track, and there is no sign of any kind of an engine that can move those two boxcars. And he said he began to think, oh my God, there's going to be some horrible crash here. And he said as soon as he thought that, and that he's thinking that he's going to have to get off the freeway and get to a telephone and try to get in touch with some authority that something has happened on this railroad track between Denver going up north to Sterling, and these boxcars are there, and there's going to be a horrible catastrophe. And that's what he's thinking when he saw the two boxcars begin to rise up together in the sky. And they got to a point, he pulled the car over to the shoulder in total disbelief at what he was seeing. And then the two boxcars just popped out. And he said, what else can I conclude, Linda, that we have something around us that is projecting images that the human mind cannot discern as being different from what we would see as normal boxcars, but the whole aberration of them being there without any way to get them off, and then having them rise up into the sky and disappear. He said, it's as if something is playing with us, cat and mouse. I remembered that as being one of those pivotal moments. And since then, the next that sort of fit into that category, one of the sort of spooky mysteries of the animal mutilations that haunts me to this day. It was in Elizabeth, Colorado, where there had been a whole series of animal mutilations intensely for several years. That was one of the places in Colorado that had repeated animal mutilations. And I had gone to Elizabeth, Colorado to meet with a deputy sheriff, Bill Howe. And Bill and I sat in his house, and this is what he told me. This would have been in 79, and the occurrence of what he was describing had happened about 3 years before in 76. They had all of these animal mutilations, and the sheriff had asked Bill Howe and another deputy to start doing night watches in areas of pastures where there were these repeated animal mutilations. And he said, we had gone out to a very specific area where we were going to watch. And we're going down, he said it was a dirt road. And the deputy and he at the same time yelled to each other, look, and coming at them, he said it looked like a ball of fire. He said, think of exactly the colors of a fire. Think of what looks like flickers like a fire. And maybe, he said, I'm not sure how big it was, but big enough to fit somewhere in the category of maybe 3 or 4 feet in diameter. And the thing was, both of us, the deputy and I, we both realized it's coming so fast, it's going to collide with our car because it is so low. And he said they both yelled some words that meant roll out. And Bill Waugh said he hit the door handle, but he extended his right foot onto the gas pedal, off the gas pedal onto the brake, and that as his deputy colleague was rolling out his door, he was trying at that last minute before whatever this fiery thing was to collide with his front window. He was trying in his last seconds to bring the car to a halt as he rolled out onto the dirt road. On their backs, on the ground, to their astonishment, they could both see that whatever this orange fiery ball was, it came right to the front window and did a 90-degree angle and went off. When they stood up, they're looking around in the environment, and Bill said, and next, we're looking in the trees at this intersection where we just rolled out of the car, and in these trees, there is a red glowing square, maybe about 12 or 14 inches square, and a very deep red. And we said, let's get out of here. And he said, I admit it. We were scared. We were shook up. We said, let's go home and we'll come back out here after the sun is up. So in the morning, they come right back to where they knew they had been. And Bill said, there are all of the body prints of where we rolled out of two sides of that car. There are the prints of the car sort of sliding into the shoulder on the road where he had hit the brake. And then they both looked to see if the red square in the trees was still there. And he said, Linda, it hit us like a crash of bricks. There weren't any trees there. There had never been any trees there at that intersection. Something the night before with that orange fiery ball made us see that which was not there, like a grove of trees with this red glowing square. And he said, one of those questions that I have always wanted to answer, Linda, what technology are we dealing with here? What can make a forest with a red light that is shaped like a square when we had a fiery ball, which we thought was going to collide with our car, and we roll out on the ground and we're looking at the hard evidence of our bodies in the car in that dirt road, and there's no forest and there's no red square. What are we dealing with? Today in 2017, I can say that I have walked so many miles now in these investigations that I have listened to people who are whistleblowers in the government who have also been trying to back engineer technology that they say is extraterrestrial, off planet, and that one of the technologies that is associated with this advanced alien intelligence interacting with our planet is the projection of three-dimensional holograms that the human mind cannot discern as being anything except the solid matter world around us. That these, like the boxcars and the square, and another man who saw an oil barrel rise up in Texas right out of a land, and the oil barrel went up in the sky and disappeared. To the human mind and eye, they think we're looking at a real oil barrel, real boxcars, a real glowing square, and yet all of them can move or disappear. And that if there is a technology that is that advanced and it's been being used around the planet, how long? And what is the agenda? And why would something from somewhere else with all of this ability be coming to this planet Earth and harvesting what is why I called my film and my book A Strange Harvest is my documentary. An Alien Harvest is my book that was written 10 years later, and by then I was convinced we weren't dealing with anything that was attributable to Homo sapien. We were dealing with something that falls in the category, as government whistleblowers say, an alien intelligence that has been interacting with this planet for at least 270 million years. That is a number that goes back before the time of the dinosaurs. That one man insists that our government has proof of alien interaction with this planet for that long. And it isn't just one intelligence. It is a variety of intelligences with different agendas. And apparently, the consensus, whatever is happening with all the animals in both hemispheres for so long, it relates to a genetic harvest. A genetic harvest, possibly for sustenance, meaning food. And another description is to create cloned bodies. When you get into this area, it becomes extremely difficult because the normal person anywhere listening today or who will listen in the future, up until just the last 10 years, the idea of cloning humans, animals, it wasn't something that most people were at all familiar with or would accept. But in the last decade or so, in our own laboratory sciences, we have Dolly, the sheep that was cloned. We have in sort of the intimations that we are moving forward in stem cell research and others, where we would be able to create organs that would match perfectly to the human body that might have illness, and that new organs could be generated with stem cells. Now, if that's where humans are in the 21st century, and we are dealing with intelligences that might be 1,000 years advanced of us, as some whistleblowers have said, then the agendas and the reasons for a variety of other intelligences to interact with this planet over a very long history and keeping humans dumb and blind about their presence, about what it is that they use and harvest from Earth to keep us dumb and blind, might make some sense. The secrecy that I have always been up against, policies of denial and lies by our own government, but you detect that in the alien presence, it appears that secrecy also serves them. So that means since World War II, that we have had more layers. We've got the governments that began to realize they were dealing with an alien intelligence that could run rings around their airplanes in World War II. And decisions were made by Churchill and Eisenhower and Truman to have a complete policy of denial in the interest of national security. And meanwhile, the various intelligences that have been using our planet for eons for a harvest of genetic material that they use for reasons that are probably incomprehensible to us, continues. The animal mutilations in the year 2017 are ongoing as we speak in Argentina and Chile and Brazil and England and Canada and the United States. I have been reporting about animal mutilations now for 38 years. And right now at my news website, earthfiles.com, I have a brand new update from Canada and from Argentina. My hope is that on programs like Phenomenon Radio, my earthfiles.com news website, the brand new Earth Files YouTube channel, in which I'm going to be doing weekly reports, and other broadcasts that I do, that people will begin to understand the complexity, the layers of a phenomena that has been interacting with our planet for a long time, and why it is that a bunch of us feel it is not only important but vital that all of this be opened up to the entire world human family, so that we all become aware, not out of fear, but out of strength. I have walked all over planet Earth. I have gathered tissues and fluid and grass and soil from animal mutilation sites, and I'm still here. So whatever it is, I do not think that it wants humans gone. In fact, I think there is something about humanity that seems to be the subject of their investigations. And when we come back after this next break, I'm going to have Bill, Skywatcher, talk to me about what I consider to be another facet that goes beyond the animal mutilations into something that is as complex, but perhaps is as important or more important to understand more thoroughly, and that is the human abduction syndrome. It is also worldwide. It has, according to some polls, it may have affected as much as 3% of the global population. And that would mean that there are millions of people who have had some kind of interaction with something that's non-human, and that most people keep it secret because they're afraid of being judged or criticized. And my own plea in this particular period of time on this earth, having spent my entire career trying to get hard facts and to get to understanding better all of this phenomena, is that if we could only have all people on earth learning together, understanding together what it is that interacts with Earth that implies that we are in a galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy, in a universe that is probably teeming with life, as remote viewers have reported. And for us to not be introduced to the complexity of all of these various life forms in the universe leaves us humans weak. So as we go forward with more and more Phenomena Radios and the work that I'm trying to do at earthfiles.com, I hope it's going to help all of you get stronger by learning more about the facts that we're not alone in this universe.
Well, Linda, we're going to go to break, and I have to tell you that was fascinating investigative testimony that you just spoke about. And we'll go to break. So you're listening to Phenomenon Radio with host Linda Moulton Howe. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Hi, it's AJ with Vibes, Mind, Body, Spirit. The Vibes Tribe seeks to assist you in creating and maintaining an uplifting and balanced state of being in your personal space. Palo Santo is a mystical tree that grows on the coast of
such as black holes. The Swedish Academy that awarded the Nobel Prize said about
Santo with any online purchase over $25. Shop online
waves moving through the universe, and that detection was.
We offer Palo Santo in resin, powder, or by the stick. Go to onlinevibes.com for all of your vibration elevation needs and receive a free stick of Palo Santo with any online purchase over $25. Shop onlinevibes.com, that's onlinevibez.com, and get your vibes on today.
Your official contact for the best alternative talk on the planet. KGRARadio.com.
This week, on Tuesday, October 3rd, 2017, physicists Barry Barish and Kip Thorne from the California Institute of Technology celebrated with champagne toasts before the news media at the university. Across the country in Cambridge, Massachusetts, their colleague Rainer Weiss was also cheering. Their celebration was as a trio who just received the 2017 Nobel Prize in Physics for being the first scientist to ever detect the faint ripple of gravity waves moving through the universe. And that detection was 2 years ago in September 2015 for the very first time. And this was also a boost for physicist Albert Einstein, who said 101 years ago in his general relativity theory that there are gravity waves in this universe that transport energy as gravitational radiation that is similar to electromagnetic radiation. The brilliant Einstein theorized that space-time itself can be stretched and compressed by collisions of massive objects in the universe, such as black holes. The Swedish Academy that awarded the Nobel Prize said about the 2015 gravity wave discovery, quote, "The best comparison is when Galileo discovered the telescope, which allowed us to see that Jupiter had moons. And all of a sudden, we discovered that the universe was much vaster than we used to think about," close quote. And physicist Kip Thorne described gravity waves this way, quote, "Gravity waves are like a storm in the fabric of space-time that is produced when two black holes collide," close quote. The gravity waves were detected by two laser devices called interferometers. One was in Hanford, Washington, and the other was in Livingston, Louisiana. That's 1,900 miles or 3,000 kilometers apart. The gravity waves arrived at those two interferometers about 7 milliseconds apart in time, and that was absolutely consistent with the speed of light, also first calculated by Albert Einstein a century ago. This is Linda Moulton Howe. Please stay tuned to Earth Files news updates on KGRA Radio and visit every day my science, environment, and Real X-Files news website, earthfiles.com, for more on breaking stories about our universe, this solar system, and the planet we live on.
The new word on the street is bloated. Yeah, you eat this food, GMO, herbicide, pesticide. Foods aren't safe anymore. And then we eat them and we're bloated. Our stomach says, no more, Seymour. So what we have to do is drink the tea. Are you on the tea? GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Super strength tea. It will help you with the new word, bloated. You can get it today. Log on to GetTheTea.com.
Mainstream media's most wanted. KGRARadio.com.
Welcome back to Phenomenon Radio with host Linda Moulton Howe. My name is Bill Skywatcher, and after listening to that fascinating investigative testimony that Linda just mentioned in the past segment on the high strangeness in regards to animal mutilations, I was actually sitting here and writing down a few questions that I came up for Linda. So I'm going to do that now. So you ready, Linda?
Yes, I am.
Okay. First question is, did any of the local authorities conduct forensic examinations? And if so, what was their official report on these animal mutilations?
It's very interesting that there's kind of a bell-shaped curve when you go into a sheriff's office, which I did to many, and said, could I see your animal mutilation reports from the beginning up to when I was there? Some of the law enforcement were very cooperative, and they would give me either access to their metal file drawers, or they would say, I'll have a secretary pull out all the mutilation files, and it'll be in a box, and you can sit on the floor. I did it both ways. Mm-hmm. And in some of those cases, some of the sheriff's offices, like in Logan County and Elizabeth County, they had over 200 animal mutilation cases that made full offense reports, some with necropsies, within an 18-month period, Bill. Wow. Now, when I would look at the written reports with the typed analysis, you would maybe get 7 that said predation, disease, or some characteristic like that. About the other 3 per 100 or so might be excision cut with a sharp instrument or excision electrocautery with heat cauterized. Those were 2 categories that were specific to the fact that there was complete precision. And the most unusual, of course, were the veterinarian pathology reports that said that whatever the instrument was, it was cooking, it was heating up the excision. And so when you had those reports that said predation or disease, I began to have deep, deep questions, because I knew that I had heard the mantra that there was nothing to animal mutilations but the disease, predator, and satanic cults. And I was ticking off each of those as not at all answering all of these questions. And so that those explanations I began to feel were political, that somebody was saying to local sheriffs, look, this is what you say. It's predator, disease, or satanic cult.
Mm-hmm. Because another thing, too, is there was no blood that was indicated anywhere near the carcass's remains. So it's one thing to say about incisions and the possibilities how they were caused, but how did they explain that the blood was removed and there was no sign of any blood at the site?
And then that goes right to the heart of working with hematologist and pathologist John Altschuler. He had an extensive background, had his own lab by the time that I got to work with him in Denver. And he had been through the University of Colorado Medical Center. He had multiple degrees. The man really knew what he was doing. And he decided that he wanted to reach out to me and let me know that he was the so-called secret doctor from Denver back in 1967 on the first horse mutilation that went around the world in news. It was reported incorrectly as being a male named Snippy. It was actually a female named Lady. And that Dr. Altschuler wanted me to know that he had gone there, that he had confirmed at the University of Colorado lab from the tissue that he collected as a professional pathologist, that back in 67, out of his own curiosity, he was looking at excisions that had been exposed to high heat. Mm-hmm. So when he came into my life, reaching out in the mid-1980s, he was saying, I am that secret doctor that was written about in the newspapers. And Linda, I am willing for the very first time to go on the record to talk about what it was that I saw and what I reported. And in my first book, An Alien Harvest, I was honored to have Dr. John Altschuler in the first chapter, 1967, A Horse Named Lady, that he goes into and details his full trip and what he found. And he goes into every piece of the horse that he examined. And here I'm reading directly from his report. At the edge of the cuts, there was a darkened color, as if the flesh had been opened and cauterized with a surgical cauterizing blade. The outer edges of the cut skin were firm, almost as if they had been cauterized with a modern-day laser. But there was no surgical laser technology like that in 1967. And from him, from being able to work with Dr. Altshuler, who in case after case, I would go out into the field, whether it was in New Mexico or Colorado or Wyoming or wherever it is, and I would take formalin solution in plastic containers. I had a scalpel and scissors, and I was very careful to show in chain of custody, here is the sheriff's knife cut, here is the mutilator's cut, here is Howe, and whatever I'm using, a scalpel or scissors, and I'm cutting around so that the pathologist will have a piece of the identified sheriff's cut if the sheriff had been there. A lot of times no law enforcement ever took any samples, but I would definitely be taking the mutilator's cut so it could be examined in the professional laboratory by Dr. Altshuler. And one day, in Denver, we both lived and worked in Denver, but I would go out to all these locations to do these samplings. And one day I got a call from him and he said, I would really like you to come over to the lab. I want to show you something important. He had what is called a stereo microscope. So on the right eye, you could be looking at, say, one patient, and on the left eye, you could be looking at another for comparison. Mm-hmm. And he had me sit down and he said, on the right is the laser surgery slides that I got from Dr. So-and-so, the gynecologist. This is known laser surgery on a human body. On the left is from this most recent mutilation that you brought the tissue. He said, tell me what you see that's different. So I'm looking at these two back and forth, and I said to him, well, the one thing I really can see clearly in the mutilation on the left of the animal, it looks like there's pepper all along the excision. Mm-hmm. And he said, bingo, that's it. That's what I wanted to explain to you. He said, I am very puzzled about what the cutting instrument could be because the image on the right shows all of the pepper grains because we are carbon-based life forms, and you cannot take a laser to any human being or a cow or a horse or anything that's a carbon-based life form on Earth and heat it like with a laser and not have carbon at the excision. It will always be there because we're carbon-based life forms. That's what the black pepper grains are. Right. And he said, I have not, and I cannot find in any of the mutilation cuts that we have done in the past, and this fresh one that I'm showing you here, there is no black carbon grains in any of the mutilation cuts. And he said, that means we are dealing with some kind of a technology that I don't understand and have never seen because it has the ability to cook the hemoglobin, cook the collagen, which he demonstrated and showed, compared to medical books for hematologists, where you're looking at identical, like in the books that they'd be studying at Harvard and Stanford, and you're looking at, now I'm looking at the mutilation, and they match, and what are the medical books showing? Here is what high heat does to hemoglobin and to collagen. And so we've got heating, but it can't be the standard laser because there is no carbon residue. And to this day, there has never been a definitive, what I mean absolutely proved, definitive explanation of what exactly is the cutting instrument in the animal mutilations that does not leave any carbon residue.
Interesting.
And then this ties right to that the necropsy in the field with Sheriff Tex Graves. When that veterinarian was holding up that pericardium with his index finger and was saying that there's no heart, there's no clotted blood, there's no excision in the pericardium, and he's basically saying to the sheriff, I have no idea or explanation how any of this has happened in the chest of this large cow without any surgical excisions on the outside. Okay, I took that exact case to Dr. Arlen Myers. He was at Rose Medical Center in Denver, and he was, in 1979, the head of the new research department of the use of lasers in surgery. This is where he was beginning and was becoming a expert, but
pioneer.
This was a brand new department, right? So I went to him and took all of this information that I had, and I said, if I could bring in things like turkey or chicken, like you would get in a supermarket, would you be willing, with our cameras running, for the TV documentary that I'm working on the animal mutilations, for you to show me what can a current laser that is doing the best laser surgery possible in Rose Medical Center, what can it do? What can an electrocautery do? And what can a normal scalpel do? And I wasn't sure I would find anybody who'd be willing to do that. And he immediately said yes. He was curious about the Polaroids from the sheriff's offices. He was very interested in the excisions. He was the classic great medical scientist who wanted to also understand what I was showing him in the law enforcement photos. So he said yes. And we did a demonstration that is a very important segment in my documentary film, A Strange Harvest. And it's Dr. Arlen Myers for our camera, one taking a laser. And I said, I'm going to run a stopwatch. And I want to see how long does it take you to get 2 inches. Now, remember, most of the removal of the penises and the testicle in the, say, the male animals, it's an average of 7, 8, sometimes 9 inches in an oval. The female, it's an entire udder removed. If it is, then you're talking about 18 inches, a big excision. So I said, I would want a time with a stopwatch as soon as you start to see how long it takes you to get a 2-inch excision on the body of one of these. I think we ended up with turkey or chicken. So he started, and my stopwatch is running at 19 minutes, and I think it was 2 or 3 seconds. I remember it was 19 minutes and a couple of seconds. He had been able to get out about 2 inches, but it looked like somebody making furrows in the soil with a tractor. The laser going around and around and around left these black carbon ridges, edges throughout in this spiral inside. It didn't look like anything anywhere that was related to animal mutilations, and he agreed. So then he tried electrocautery, same issue, didn't look anything, and it took forever to even do 2 inches. Then we went to the scalpel. He said, I'll try to match the 6 or 7 inch oval that I talked about at the beginning of this Phenomena Radio down in Walsenburg. I told him what the diameter was and that this was on a steer lying under these trees and the willow. And so he tried to match it on one of these chicken or turkey that we had there. And it was very educational because he said, you cannot pull even the sharpest scalpel in an oval without it slipping and causing nicks along the way, which is exactly what his demonstration showed us. Right. He could not do a perfect oval, and he was a skilled surgeon. And he said, hide, we're working with turkeys and chickens. He said, I cannot even begin to imagine that anybody could take a scalpel through hide and make the perfect circles and perfect ovals that you have in the law enforcement Polaroids. So then I told him about Sheriff Tex Graves asking that veterinarian to do a necropsy, and that the veterinarian showed the sheriff that there was no heart inside of a collapsed pericardium that had no holes, tears, no clotted blood, nothing, and that the veterinarian was very upset by what he found. And this is what Dr. Arlen Myers told me on the record with the camera running back in 1979.
Wow. See, Linda, the thing that I think about...
Wait, you got to hear what he said.
Okay.
So he said, Linda, what I am thinking about as I hear you describe this, the removal of a heart with no surgery on the outside of the body, he said, I have as one of my goals is in this going into the 21st century. He said, I'm hoping that 50 years from now, and he was in his, I think, late 30s, early 40s, that we will have molecular specific surgery. And he said, and my goal, my dream is, let's say that you need to have your gallbladder excised. He said, molecular specific means that we'll be able to dial up the exact molecular frequency of a gallbladder. And we'll be able to put a beam that will be a certain frequency, and it'll go through the skin, it'll go through cartilage, it'll go through bone, it will go with it through anything, but it will only interact with the gallbladder or the heart or the whatever you dial in the frequency for. Mm-hmm. And he said, so what you have just described to me happened in northern Colorado with that veterinarian and the sheriff. Sounds like a technology that was able to extract the molecules of the cow's heart tissue through the body, through the pericardium, without leaving a single hole in the pericardium itself or the body, but was able to extract the heart. And that was said to me in 1979 by Dr. Arlen Myers at Rose Medical Center.
Incredible. See, the question I was going to ask you is, did this you investigated this on a global scale? Were there any other cases, not just here in the United States or North America, but overseas, say, that had similar instruments being used on their animal mutilations, and was it all occurring at the same time period? And if so, do you find this to be a coincidence or a copycat? Because I would find that very highly unlikely.
No, it is around the world. It goes all the way back to reports in Australia at the beginning of the 20th century. And there have been, this is official. This came in the Buenos Aires newspaper headlines. And in fact, I ended up interviewing a reporter working in one of the newspaper offices in Buenos Aires about this. It was 2005 that I did the story, and everything I'm talking about is at my news website, earthfiles.com. If you go there in a quick search and you just put up in quick search, let's say Argentina, or mutilations, you will see all of these stories that I have done. Mm-hmm. And here was what was the astounding headline in 2005. There is a Department of Agriculture like agency in Argentina. It is known as SENASA, S-E-N-A-S-A. It's an acronym, like the way we have government names. SENASA made an official report that made the headlines in Argentina that between the year 2002 and the year 2005, in those 3 years, there had been as many or more than 3,000 animal mutilation reports to veterinarians and SENASA in Argentina and across the border into Chile. 3,000 in 3 years. That's 1,000 mutilation cases a year. Today, when I talk with people who are doing investigations in Brazil, Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, they say that as far as they're concerned, if that was the official government statistic back in 2005, they don't think anything has changed. What has changed is that after that SENASA department seemed to honestly report this huge wave of animal mutilations. The next thing that came into the media, it's just preposterous what I'm going to tell you, but this is absolutely true, and you can see my Earth Files reports, and you can see the photograph that the government issued to the news media. It was of a little mouse, about 2 inches long. It is known in Argentina and Chile in that area as a tiny little field mouse. Farmers and ranchers will tell you that this little field mouse does not eat horses, cattle, pigs, or anything. And yet, the government, SENASA, the Department of Agriculture in Argentina, put out an official press release with a picture of this little tiny mouse saying that the answer to the strange bloodless cuts on all of the animal mutilations that had been being reported in Argentina and in Chile, all had been done by this little mouse. Now, exactly. And the reaction by the farmers, the veterinarians, the ranchers was they were disgusted. There was a backlash. There were more reports. I started getting reports where veterinarians had found high heat at the excision lines, and they were reporting it because they were so angry at what they said was the most stupid possible explanation, that it was the government just trying to get the media and the public off of their back. And they put this out that was completely at odds with every fact in all the animal mutilations. And to this day, people in South America laugh. They use this as a joke. The day that the government, SENASA in Argentina, tried to use this little 2-inch mouse to explain the mutilations of thousands of animals in at least 2 countries. And this underscored that governments are afraid of the animal mutilation story. Mm-hmm. They want to run the other way when anybody comes to them to ask. And my own experience has been as an investigative reporter.
That's fascinating. You know,
yeah.
you mentioned earlier that there were some objects seen near the sites of some of these animal mutilations. Now, with all your in-depth research into these animal mutilation cases, are they, in your opinion, extraterrestrial in nature? And what conclusion have you reached in the possible interest of removing these organs, which also makes me think that is this some type of need that they may have of the blood and the organs for some type of alien hybrid agenda, which may involve human abductees?
Well, one of the very interesting Earth Files reports that I have, I've been doing Earth Files news from 1999 to the current day, and it's evolving. There are now 2,600 reports there in depth, and it's becoming, for me, like an Encyclopedia Britannica archive over time of so many things, whether it's crop formations, animal mutilations, human abductions, whistleblowers, all of it. And one of those reports that is at Earth Files with illustrations, there were 2 young guys in their 20s, and they were out camping. And they are waked up, apparently by a sound, and they both see a beam of light coming down out of a craft, and they drew the craft for me, and it's at Earth Files. Mm-hmm. And in that drawing, as the beam is coming down, they are showing that they are seeing a cow that is rising up in the beam, and they jump up. They are both absolutely, their minds are blown. This is a UFO, and it is beaming up people to, or beaming up a cow, and the next thing they know is that, bang, they're inside of a room. here is this cow hooked up to tubes.
Wow.
And that they are looking at what they called reptilians or lizards. And this was very interesting because some people describe standing up alligators, meaning large scales, and some people describe standing up lizards that have kind of a pebbly skin, a very light pebbly skin. And in this particular description, both of these guys said the same thing. It was a standing up reptile, and that they said the skin was closer to a lizard, and that they would say that they were looking at standing up lizards more than a standing up alligator, but they could understand people talking about alligators. So we're definitely talking about standing up reptiles, and that they got telepathic communication showing them that the tubes were going into the cow. It was important that the cow be alive while the blood was being taken, and that they could see it going through tubes. And that the telepathy to them was that this was nourishment. This was sustenance for these standing up reptoids.
Wow.
Now, that is one of the few cases where you've got two people, so two eyewitnesses, conscious, see the beam, see the animal go up in the beam, and then bang, they're in there, as if the reptilians wanted these two humans to see exactly what they were doing. And in that case, the explanation was that they were taking the blood from the animal for sustenance. But they do not know, they were not shown, they were not told, why is the pattern of an ear, eye, tongue, jaw, genitals, and rectum poured out, why that pattern around the world in both hemispheres for a century at least. So when you come to the relationship between the non-human intelligence in all of its complexity, interacting with Homo sapiens sapien, you, me, and the human family, there are demonstrations. They will do things that seem to be demonstrating for the human something. Like in this case, they're saying, we drink or eat this blood. But they don't tell any whole story. They don't explain who they are, where they're from, why are they here on this planet, why are they excising tissues. But then there is another abduction case that I go into in my third book, Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 2, High Strangeness. And this, I think, is one of the most important. I'm sorry about this.
That's okay.
Should have taken my phone off the hook.
Well, why don't we do this? We're coming up on a break, and we'll continue this on the next segment.
And then I'll take this phone off the hook.
Okay. So let's go to break, and you're listening to Phenomenon Radio with host Linda Moulton Howe. So we'll be right back after these quick words.
Hi, it's AJ with Vibes, Mind, Body, Spirit. The Vibes Tribe seeks to assist you in creating and maintaining an uplifting and balanced state of being in your personal space. Palo Santo is a mystical tree that grows on the coast of South America. Palo is loved by many for its energetic, cleansing, and healing properties, and is also popularized for its heavenly presence in keeping your energy grounded and clear. Burning Palo provides an uplifting scent to raise your vibration and is also beneficial for relieving stress, anxiety, depression, and emotional pain. Palo Santo is also known for relieving symptoms of the common cold, headaches, and asthma. We offer Palo Santo in resin, powder, or by the stick. Go to onlinevibes.com for all of your vibration elevation needs and receive a free stick of Palo Santo with any online purchase over $25. Shop onlinevibes.com, that's onlinevibez.com, and get your vibes on today.
Now you have the inside contact for alternative talk radio. The Planet. KGRAradio.com.
Welcome back to Phenomenon Radio with host Linda Moulton Howe. My name is Bill Skywatcher. And before we went to break, Linda was discussing the case where two individuals were brought aboard a craft to witness a cow with what seemed to be like two reptilian-type beings, and they were using the cow for sustenance. Now, Linda, is it possible that they used these individuals to witness that they were not there to directly cause any harm to humans in this kind of fashion? And by witnessing this, we're here simply because we need these animals to survive, and we're not here as a direct threat to humans.
The men took it that way, and it made me think a great deal about this. What if a reptilian presence has been using planet Earth for 270 million years, as I was told by a man who retired from the Defense Intelligence Agency in 1999? It might explain why the Garden of Eden story in Genesis talks about Adam and Eve in a garden. They're innocent, they're new, they're a fresh consciousness on earth. And what comes into that garden to teach Eve? It's called a serpent. Mm-hmm. If a serpent was there at the beginning of we'll call it the evolutionary creation of Homo sapiens sapien, is it possible that Genesis alone, the Garden of Eden story, is an actual accurate insight into what was helping guide the original Homo sapiens sapien, and perhaps manipulating DNA and already evolving primates on this planet to create a series of standing up primates that began 2 million years ago with Lucy in Africa and went through the preceding model would have been Neanderthal, and now we are Cro-Magnon Homo sapiens sapien. And a very interesting question is, if there have been reptilians, and they're supposed to be blonde Nordics that in the past we thought were angels like the angel Michael, but were non-humans from someplace else, beautiful, blue-eyed, blonde, tall ETs, and that the gray ones with the variety of different shaped eyes and heights, that the 2 to 3 feet ones are supposed to be androids. Exactly what we hear Elon Musk and others arguing about today, that as we move into the 21st century, because the human body is frail when it comes to space travel, that Elon Musk and others can see that artificial intelligence and the creation of cyborgs, a cyborg would be a human with an organic brain and body, but who deliberately joins that body into electronic, digital, computer equipment that can make the body run faster, jump higher, be able to live perhaps for 1,000 years, because once you have something that is part machine and part organic, it isn't going to be confined necessarily to 70-year lives. All of this we're discussing right now on Earth in the human family. So perhaps the whole Garden of Eden story that sets up the idea of a reptile teaching Eve echoes right into that craft where those two guys saw the beam of light and that cow, and that you are describing it very well, that it was like a symbolic communication to those two humans that would end up talking to me and to others. They're going to show, okay, yes, we take these cows like you are slaughtering cows around your planet every day of every year to eat. And we are showing you that we take one of your cows from a pasture and we hook it up to tubes, which is what they described, and then we drink from whatever it is that they're taking out of the animal. So that started me on a more subtle thought about if you've got reptilians and you have the tall, beautiful Nordics, it made me think of Ireland and Western Europe. I've been all over Western Europe, and I have climbed the Tor in England and have seen the beautiful remnant of the church up on top of the Tor. And at one end is this beautiful carving of a tall, allegedly blonde, because the angel Michael was always depicted as blonde-haired, and has a big sword carved into this ancient stone and is ramming that big sword right down into the throat of what looks like a dragon. So where did all of those stories about dragons versus the angel Michael, where did that come from? Well, today when you talk with, or I have talked with whistleblowers who have passed on, I've talked with several people who said that they had firsthand knowledge about all of this and they wanted to talk to me before they died. They were ill, and I have been able to talk with some. Mm-hmm. And they say that their understanding is that there are wars, that there have been long extended wars between these blondes and these standing up alligators or lizards, and that the two would like to annihilate each other for reasons I have no understanding about why. But in our own planet of human history, such a war would be in these carved stones in Western Europe of the angel Michael plunging sword down into a dragon. And in the most recent last 3 years, this man, William Mills Tompkins, appeared with the help of Bob Wood, who worked at McDonnell Douglas, has a PhD in electrical engineering. It learned about William Mills Tompkins that at age 93, he passed it was only a few months ago at age 96. Wow. And so when he came on the scene to work with Bob Wood on a book, and I think there's a second book that will be released posthumously, William Mills Tompkins could show and demonstrate from his own family, their own files, newspapers, that he was considered a teenage genius who could look at photographs or look at real ships or airplanes or anything and then be able to turn around and create absolutely perfect scale models of whatever he was looking at. And that William Mills Tompkins was taken into the Navy to help during World War II on being able to do scale models of German or perceived enemy technology, and that one of the areas that he was, I'm going to say, given classified clearance to, was looking at film and photographs of UFOs. And that in the work that he did, he became exposed as a young man to the fact that the United States government and England in World War II had become aware that there were reptilians somehow involved in the war. There were other humanoid types that were involved in the war, perhaps gray beings involved, and that is how he, in his 20s, began to realize that the United States had a policy of denial about all things extraterrestrial and UFOs. That was the policy, firm. But that he and others were being exposed to the truth behind the policies of denial, which is that the universe is teeming with life, that there are all kinds. Some are reptilian, some look like blonde Nordics, some look like the grays, and a whole bunch more, and that there has been a tremendous interaction with our own planet for a very long time. All of that came from the retired Navy guy, just in the last 3 years, who unfortunately has passed, but I did a long interview with him 2 years ago that was quite astonishing. And he said in that interview with me for Earth Files and Coast and a number of things that I was using because it was such an astonishing interview, he said that he got the distinct impression that there were non-human intelligences that were our allies, that World War II, we were helped, even if we didn't understand it. And that in this issue of a war, that he felt that we had allies. He agreed with some of the remote viewers who said we have allies, but that there are some life forms out there that would be considered enemies and could be very dangerous, and that part of what we're going through on this planet is a transition from all of the human governments finally giving up on keeping all of the UFO, ET, other life in the universe from the human family, that they're finally going to stop that after decades, and that we are headed toward the big headlines around the world. We're not alone in this universe. We never have been. And that, in fact, Homo sapiens sapiens are babies on this planet in relationship to other life forms that have been evolving, even fighting with each other for eons, and that in our own solar system, and this was another thing that William Mills Tompkins told me, he said, there is archaeology on the backside of the moon that matches precisely the archaeology that we have discovered, and not announced, but that we have discovered on the northern hemisphere of Mars, that matches precisely the same archaeology a mile or two under the ice in Antarctica on this planet. Now, when he said that to me, and there have been other whistleblowers who suggest the same thing, not proved yet, but at least there's a repetition of this idea, that the whole issue of being on Earth as a conscious life form, as Homo sapiens sapien, that is supposed to have occurred in an overlap with Neanderthals about maybe 35, 40,000 years ago. Mm-hmm. Lucy is a standing up primate that can be dated back 2 million years, but there's been all of these models. So when you say 35 or 40,000 years ago, that's that transition from Neanderthal to Cro-Magnon Homo sapiens sapien, which is us now. If, Bill, it is proved with photographs, film, and military missions with archaeologists that a mile or two of ice in Antarctica, that they already know that there is architecture, hieroglyphs, pyramids that match archaeology on the backside of the moon and on Mars. Let me give you at least one solid fact. Antarctica today has two big sections. East Antarctica is all on land. West Antarctica is lots of this ice that's floating on water. Running right down like a spine between East and West Antarctica are the Transantarctic Mountains. And what I just reported this on at Earth Files and Coast to Coast AM, that recently a scientist, Professor William Bingham at Edinburgh University in Scotland, worked with a team, and they were using ice-penetrating radar, and they have discovered and confirmed 138 volcanic cones going along that spine between East Antarctica and West.
Incredible.
And they think that that spine, once juxtaposed against what we would call the southeast I'm going to say the coastline of Africa. So that would be when Gondwana land, when all these pieces of land were more close together or were all one landmass, and then 200 million years ago they started separating out, apparently because of dynamic volcanic earthquake, all kinds of things going on in this earth. That was 200 million years ago. And so this piece drifts down and ends up at the South Pole. The last time that the East Antarctic land mass was completely free of ice was 33 or 34 million years ago. And you would think if there were extraterrestrials using Earth, going through the solar system, building on Mars, building on the moon, building on the Earth, who knows, building all over the place, for them to have built pyramids and architecture that would be on the land under the ice at Antarctica. The last time it was ice-free was 32, 33, 34 million years ago. That, you subtract 2 million for the age of Lucy in Africa, and you're talking about at least 30-some million years ago when there would have been the construction of this non-human, I'm going to call it architecture, on land in Antarctica.
There's so many governments there that are doing expeditions in Antarctica, and it makes you wonder why.
Well, yes, and the National Science Foundation has sent teams of scientists down there. And about 3 years ago, I did a very, very important report he's a retired naval engineer. And while he was there they were on a C-130. They had 17 men on board, all of them, including the man talking to me about all this. They're flying toward the trans-Antarctic mountain chain. And they see a whole bunch of silver discs come up over the mountains and start doing 90-degree turns, popping in and out, zipping, stopping in the air. They're absolutely stunned. And every single person aboard that C-130 watched these silver discs. Wow. Then, within a short period of time, they got an assignment to pick up some National Science Foundation scientists at McMurdo, our USA station, and transfer them to Marie Byrd Land with the idea that these National Science Foundation scientists have a mission that they're going to be there for 2 or 4 weeks or something in whatever the project is. And that the naval engineer who was on these flights and is telling me firsthand his knowledge said they took the scientists in with a whole lot of equipment. And the idea was, and they said there were instructions, there needs to be a phone connection from you guys here in Marie Byrd Land to McMurdo every day. Every 24 hours, you have to make a phone call so that we know that you're all right.
Wow.
A week goes by, and they're back at McMurdo. Nothing. Not a single phone call from these scientists for an entire week. Now alarms start going out. The National Science Foundation is concerned. They let one more week go by and nothing. And they sent the C-130 crew back to where they had dropped off all of these. They did what's called an aerial circle. They went up high so they could look at the whole land, and then they kept coming down lower and lower and lower. Mm-hmm. And they could see snowmobiles. They could see tracks that people had been there. There was nothing. There was not a single person. There was nothing moving. They landed. They couldn't find anybody. They went back to McMurdo. Now this is like alarm. What has happened? And we're 15, 16, 17 scientists.
Wow.
So another week goes by, and they get a call. We've heard from the scientists, get your act together and get over there. They want out now. So now the same exact crew, they land. And he said, we all thought that we were going to be into a cheering, we're going to hear some weird story, and that these scientists are going to be waiting, screaming to see us. He said, we land. Not a single one of those scientists looked up, said hello, nothing. They are silent. They look upset. They get on our C-130, and he said that one of the men, he thought there were 2 women in the group, and he thought there were about 15, so maybe 13 men and 2 women, and that one of the men was sitting closer to where he was as a flight engineer. They all have their assigned places to be, and he was in his seat, and this one scientist was closest, looking at the floor, never once to him. And he said, I just had to try. He said, I reached out and I touched the man's shoulder, and I said, are you all right? And he said, Linda, there was not a single word answer. It was like they were traumatized to their core. They landed, a man in black suits, white shirts, and black ties. He said it was just like out of the movie. We're waiting for them, and they got a debriefing that they were never to talk to anybody ever about the missing scientists. They were picked up by another plane. They were taken to Christchurch, New Zealand. Another plane took all of the scientific equipment that was gathered up, and where did it go? According to the scuttlebutt on the base, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio.
As we hear so much of the past of Wright-Patterson. Now, we only have a few minutes left, and I want to ask you one final question. We hear about the alleged communication or possibly contact during World War II between the Germans and the Vril Society, and the technology maybe they obtained during that period. Now, the reason I ask you is that, do you think that the U.S. government, along with other powerful world governments, are cooperating with alien civilizations in the advancement of the technology for ourselves, specifically probably for the use of, for the military-industrial complex in the name of national security and all that comes with that, and in exchange for our silence and denial of their existence, which would include the retrieval of UFO craft, abductee cases, and other extraterrestrial activities?
The answer, as far as I'm concerned, is yes. There is collaboration, that it has been going on for a very long time. I have interviewed people who will not go on the record with their face and their name, but I believe that they are telling me the truth. And these are stories that go back into between World War II in the 60s, and then a lot from the 60s on. And they kind of boil down. Here's one. This was a man, I interviewed him in person, met him in California, and he was a painter, like a construction painter, where they work with heavy sprayers and all of that. That's what he did for a living. Mm-hmm. And he was used to getting through, he worked for Boeing, he worked for Halliburton, he worked for various of those kinds of companies that would get defense contractor assignments. And he said on one of them, they would enter into like a mining elevator. This was out in the Area 51S4 area, this particular story. And he said for 3 or 4 months they did this, and that's why he began to count. And he said the count from the top when they would get in the elevator and go down to where they would get out to do their spray paint was something like a few minutes. He said, how deep do you think? I don't know how fast we were going, but he said we went way down into the earth. And where we came out, it was all white. Everything was white. And those walls would glow. There was no electricity. And he said, and I was told that if I saw glowing balls of light moving in the corridors, to ignore them. And we said, when you'd say, what are you talking about? It's not something to ask about. We're just telling you, ignore the balls of light in the corridors. And he said, one day he was very compartmentalized in how far he or any of the men working on this, they could go to X, and then they couldn't go any further. They would have to wait for military people with guns to come before they could paint in some other place. Very restricted. And where he was standing, he was waiting for somebody in the military to come to go whatever this next direction was, when he said a part of the wall where he was standing right next to waiting opened up. And it was like an electronic whoosh. And he didn't even know that there was a door or anything. It just, wow. And he said he looked in astonishment, and now he could see it was a being he said had to be 7 feet tall, extremely thin, green mint skin. Linda, this was not a human. This was an extraterrestrial, and it was in a white science, you would put a lab coat on. And around, he could see military humans. He could see other what looked like really normal human scientists, but he said, this 7 foot tall, thin, in the color of a green mint. He said, you think of a chocolate mint that you open up. It was that color green, mint green. And I saw it for like 3 seconds, and then plonk, the wall went shut. There was no sign of a door. And I said, holy shit, they're working with extraterrestrials here. And then here's the final dot on this amazing story. One day he's spraying, and here comes one of these glowing lights. And he said, I don't know what came over me. I just couldn't help it. I lifted up my sprayer and I sprayed right at this glowing light bobbing in the air. And he said it fell right down to the floor, covered with paint. Linda, it couldn't have been 15 seconds. Armed guards with machine guns all came from every direction, and I was their target. And he said that was the last day I ever worked on any project like this. By blowing that thing down, whatever it was, he said, I lost the ability from there on to get classified work, but I'm here to tell you, and he's talking to me face to face, this happened, this is real, and our government is working with extraterrestrials behind that strange wall.
Well, we got to wrap up, but I got to tell you, he almost started an intergalactic conflict by doing something like that. Linda, it was an absolute pleasure being on with you tonight. And anything new coming up on Earth Files before we go?
Oh, I am going to be unfolding an amazing story with a person who worked in both the Marines and the Army and may have been subjected to an MK Ultra type of manipulation of his mind with incredible results. So everybody go to earthfiles.com. I'm going to start unfolding that story and many more.
Excellent. So with that, for Linda Moulton Howe and myself, everyone, I hope you enjoyed the show. Have a great night. And Linda, we'll see you again next week for Phenomenon Radio. So good night, everybody.
Thank you, Bill.